Yo, what up?
Now to a deepening mystery here in New York City. Police are investigating new video of three people emerging from a sewer in New York City. It's just the latest in a series of similar and disturbing incidents in recent weeks. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, the NYPD investigating this new video showing three people climbing out of a Manhattan manhole in the middle of the night.
Wow.
One by one, some in all black, wearing waders and headlamps, emerging to the street just feet from Penn Station in Madison Square Garden. It's the latest in a string of bizarre incidents in the belly of New York. This group, oddly similar to the ones police were trying to identify weeks ago. Seen here, also wearing waders, carrying flashlights, and prying open a manhole, then slipping into the sewer. In another incident, authorities think these groups are hunts to the infrastructure.
Some dumb TikTok horse shit. That's all it is.
Bodybuilder Larry Wheels suffered a nasty-looking injury to his biceps during a boxing match last night. In this video, we'll talk about what exactly happened here, why it might have occurred, and what exactly is going to be done to fix it. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Suter, and the goal on the channel is to teach more about the medical side of the sports world. That means
The way this guy has his mic set up is super stupid and annoying.
even covering things like influencer boxing, which is, I guess, what we'll call this. And that's important to point out because a lot of times these kind of obscure, unusual seeming injuries are more likely to happen in somebody who is not used to doing a particular sport, and the subsequent loads that are put on their tendons and their muscles and ligaments while doing said sport. Larry Wheels, very strong guy, right? He's very athletic looking, bodybuilder, etc. But his muscles, he is not a boxer. His muscles, his tissues are not used to a lifetime career of boxing. And that means the moves that come along with boxing are going to be more likely to cause injury. And we'll talk about the muscle size, all that kind of, elephant in the room, so to speak here. But basically in this picture, this is after the injury has occurred. And we can see this very clear kind of abnormal bulging in contour of his biceps on that right arm. And most likely the injury occurred on this punch. Larry is going to deliver this punch with his right arm, and as he swings through, you can see him kind of pause and hesitate for a split second, almost kind of bringing that right arm in closer to his chest. He goes back a second time, but I believe it was probably already torn there. So most likely was going to be on this punch right here as he comes through. That punch right there where he's stretching out with that right arm, I suspect is going to be when the biceps was ultimately injured. You can kind of see a little bit here potentially of some abnormal shading. And most people, of course, are used to a biceps injury occurring whenever you're doing a heavy curl, but you have to remember that your biceps is also firing whenever you throw your arm out like this. So when you go out into this position, I'll kind of demonstrate with my left here. When you swing that arm across, you are still firing your biceps to help stabilize the arm, to stabilize everything. And then when the punch actually lands, there's this moment where your opponent, the body of the opponent, is pushing your arm back in the opposite direction behind you. And so those muscles are having to stabilize even more to deliver an effective punch and not have your arm just go completely loose. So it's almost analogous to like Vitali, the opponent here that he hits, is kind of similar to a sudden, real heavyweight curl that you're performing where there's this unexpected, oh man, he's going to absolutely need a surgery. Not necessarily. Here you can see, right, that biceps is very clearly balled up down towards the elbow. This is what we would call a Popeye sign, where, you get that balling up of the biceps that kind of looks like Popeye the Sailor Man. So this would be a classic Popeye sign where we're seeing some retraction of these upper, more proximal fibers. Biceps is retracting down because the elbow insertion is still intact. And so it balls up down towards the elbow, very consistent with what we would call a proximal, meaning an upper. If this isn't like a torn ACL, a dislocated shoulder, he very well could have continued fighting if he really wanted to. I'm not saying he should have, but this isn't like a dangerous, unstable type of injury like another might be. So if we look now at our biodigital anatomy tool, this is really important to understand why a proximal biceps tendon rupture is not necessarily a surgical injury like some other muscle ruptures may be. The bicep.
A lot of surgeons won't even operate if you get a proximal tear.
That's right, biceps bi. There are two heads of the biceps muscle. There is the long head and the short head. The long head of the biceps muscle is here more on the outside. The short head is more here on the medial side. So proximally, meaning up towards the shoulder, there are two separate tendons However, when you get down towards the insertion on the elbow, specifically the radius, they really blend into one common distal biceps tendon. Now, there are still kind of two separate little footprints where they insert, but you can think of it as two tendons up at the shoulder, one tendon down at the insertion. The majority of times when we see an injury like what Larry Wheels had, it is a rupture of this proximal long head of the biceps tendon, but the short head is still intact. The long head of the biceps tendon comes off the glenoid labrum, so it actually goes up into the shoulder joint itself, anchors into the labrum. If you ever heard of somebody having a slap tear, that is a tear of the superior labrum from anterior to posterior, oftentimes involving this anchor where the biceps tendon goes into the labrum. The short head of the biceps tendon is going to come off of the coracoid process on the shoulder blade, much more towards kind of the chest proper than out over the shoulder. So because you still have intact distal biceps fibers down at the elbow, and you've only ruptured one of the two proximal, you still have a connection between the short head down to the insertion, and so you can still get some function of that biceps. Opposite though, if you have a rupture of the distal biceps tendon, where the proximal ones are still intact and the ball kind of the muscle goes up towards the shoulder, we call that a reverse Popeye sign. And now because there's nothing going down for those tendons to be intact, that is going to be typically a surgical injury, especially in a young active person. Now you will still see a bit of a functional deficit here. And so for somebody who is like a high level pitcher, overhead athlete, there will still be a discussion about doing surgery to repair that long head rupture. In somebody who the cosmetics matter, there may also be more of a discussion to do surgery to repair it. But functionally, most people actually will not notice too much of a difference here when they have an injury like this. And so this is not something that has to have surgery. This is not a clear surgical injury like a pec rupture or like a distal rupture or something like a quad tendon or patellar tendon, Achilles tendon. This is because of really wanting that big, huge major surgery sort of thing to do. Finally, everybody's going to say, of course, like, oh, steroid accusations and all this stuff. I don't know Larry's full history with what he said he's done or used, etc. I think what we have to realize that, yes, there is a
This is just a common boxing injury.
clear association with tendon ruptures in bodybuilders. Now, whether that is because bodybuilders are more likely to be using anabolic substances or because bodybuilders are putting more load on their tendons, therefore there is more potential to cause tendon injury, that's where the research gets a little bit clouded. I think for what we saw here with Larry, this is more clearly an example of somebody who is not used to putting their biceps, their muscles, through these quick, sudden, explosive types of load.
I said, ideally, both of these men would knock each other out. Both are villains. We want both of them to lose. Like, the only way we win is that they knock each other out at the same time. And so essentially, this is kind of what happened. Larry Wheels knocks out Vitality in about 30 seconds, but at the same time, he detaches his bicep, ending his bodybuilding career. Coach Greg, in today's video, the results of the boxing match you've been waiting for, and this was not expected. And so clearly, Larry, much larger than Vitality, carrying at least 50 pounds more muscle. Did anyone not expect him to have a lot of punching power? However, notice the unsportsmanlike behavior while Vitality is down for the count, hanging on the ropes. The only thing missing was the little birdies doing the circle over his head. Larry then throws a second
It's kind of funny how if he didn't do that, he wouldn't have ruptured his bicep.
punch, hitting him right in the face. Now, ironically, that last punch was where he actually tore his bicep.
Yeah, it's blasted. It's totally detached. Serves me right. Hitting man when he's down. Again, I apologize. I hit him once when he was down. Big mistake. I apologize to him first and foremost. That was poor sportsmanship. Really... I'm ashamed to have done that, and that was actually the punch that tore my bicep. That punch.
Ouch. Can you show the camera your biceps? People couldn't know.
Exactly, yep. And now it matches my left bicep. So now they're symmetrical.
And so perhaps that's karma in full effect. This man went from powerlifting world records to bodybuilding to now boxing. Say whatever you want about him. Take such balls to keep trying in life like this. Larry, he posted this video, many people congratulating, saying, look how good you did. But these people failed to understand that he actually tore his bicep. Does anyone think that training like Larry Wheels for 15 years is actually going to be beneficial for him when it comes to boxing? Bro had to downsize. He had to lose approximately 50 pounds.
Now, Larry lost over 45 pounds for this fight, and he's the smallest he's been in years to be able to fight Vitaly for this fight. And this fight literally lasted about 1 minute exactly, where they were both throwing some pretty good punches, but then Larry Wheels got a hold of Vitaly and knocked him down. But then Larry looked down and saw his right bicep was torn, and he knew immediately what happened.
And because he's so stiff, he lacks the flexibility, he wasn't able to throw more than a couple of punches without tearing his arm. Previously, he tore his bicep while
It's not really stiffness and inflexibility.
training for strongman, but
Like again, bicep tears are a pretty common injury in boxing. So are shoulder dislocations. Like, it happens to professional boxers.
as you can see, he's done it again. And so Larry Wheels has now 2 torn biceps. And if he continues to fight, remember, this is just boxing. Imagine what's going to happen when he gets into MMA, when he starts grappling, when people are twisting, turning. He doesn't have the flexibility. And so he's going to continue to get hurt.
But this actually would have been a solid fight. And for Larry, this is a very bad injury for him, considering all of his content is around lifting, which now he will definitely be out of commission.
And so despite having lost all that muscle, he still ended up getting hurt in a matter of 1 minute. Now, absolutely, this fight was much better than Conor McGregor, where he didn't even throw a single punch.
What's the rehab process like for it?
Well, if it's exactly what happened with my left, which is what it feels and looks like, my left bicep took between 3 and 4 weeks to heal. And I chose not to get surgery because it would have taken me a whole year to recover. And that's never going to happen. Being that I don't have any intention to do bodybuilding, I may just take some peptides, heal for the next month, and let it be, man. Whatever. Hey, at least now they match.
And so if Larry decides to continue to box, we're simply going to see him get even smaller. He's going to tear even more muscles. And let that be a lesson. Guys who are former bodybuilders, oftentimes they think they're good at everything. After all, they've had fast twitch fibers, they were good in sports in high school, but once they try using their bodies in the real world, they often get injured. I mean, did we not see C-Bum, 6-time Mr. Olympia? He did a half-decent looking sprint and immediately he limped up. It looked as though he has torn his quads, his hamstrings, and every time he goes harder than last time in anything other than lifting weights, he seems to get injured. Did he win though? And so the answer is he didn't actually win. Technically speaking, when he first hit Vitality, he had to leave him on the ground for the 10 count, of which it would have been a knockout. Not to mention he tore his bicep, ending his fight.
We were worried we wouldn't be able to find any treats for our kitty since he had zero interest in any of the vegan treats on Vecado. But turns out he fucking loves pumpkin puree, which makes sense cause he's orang. What treats do you give Gummy when good boy?
I just give him rice cakes. He really likes rice cakes. And yeah, cats like pumpkin. Well, that's pretty normal. Thanks, Non-Wib.
Before they announced the victory.
They were telling me if he counted to 10 and didn't say anything and call because of my injury, I would have taken the W. That's up for speculation. I'm not going to comment on that.
Had he said nothing about the bicep, had he not hit Vitality while he was down, perhaps he would have been declared the champion and he wouldn't have injured his biceps after all. And so all I can think of is perhaps this is karma, not just for punching Bro while he was down, but for that $50,000 that he refused to pay back to his friend.
I may just take some peptides, heal for the next month, and let it be, man.
He doesn't want to spend a year rehab.
Looking good, brother. Thanks. Appreciate the donation, Kenny.
Having his biceps, and so he's taking essentially the easy way out. Guys, he's still going to be able to lift. It's just going to take him perhaps another month before he can start reusing that bicep yet again. It's the exact same tear he had on the opposite arm earlier in his career. And he's going to be using peptides. Now, don't forget, if you're interested in getting your blood work taken or using peptides, of course, visit AlgorX. You want to have your peptides medications prescribed from doctors who get. In fact, go and visit Vitality and his wheels now celebrate. And so notice in this video how Larry apologizes. He says it was wrong of me to hit him when he was down. That's poor sportsmanship, that I deserved this injury. And all the comments are saying, hey, win Larry. You're the best. We love you. Notice in comparison, when he refused to give the $50,000 back, doesn't even comment about it, the fact that he would do this to his friend. And so why doesn't he simply give the money back? Say, hey, I needed that money to make a down payment on my home. I spent all of my cash on cam girls. I have an addiction. It was the wrong thing for me to do. If he were to do that, the world would move on. We see it. As soon as people apologize in social media, people, they forgive and they forget and they move on. And so Larry, why not pay your friend back? You simply need to apologize, and hey, what you do in the privacy of your own home, well, that is up to you. We should not care. And so before the fight, I said, ideally, both of these men would knock each other out. Both are villains. We want both of them to lose. Like, the only way we win is that they knock each other out at the same time. And so essentially, this is kind of what happened. Vitality was knocked out by Larry, of which everyone was rooting for. I mean, you don't want Vitality to win anything. This man has been doing horrible things for a year. But to the opposite extent, many people cheering for Larry to lose because of that $50,000 that he had not given back to his friend. And so he tears his bicep. And so I do believe the fans got exactly what they wanted. They got to see Larry Wheels knock out Vitality while at the same time not simply walk out unscathed. Subscribe, click the bell button.
Lifting weights is pointless unless you do it as endurance. Yeah, that's why most, like pretty much every sport, aside from just long distance running, even then they actually do weight training. That's why every sport has heavy, intense weight training. It's part of their programming. Most bodybuilding people cannot fight. Yeah, that's because they don't do martial arts. They just bodybuild. Literally nobody can fight unless they train for fighting.
$2 million US, but you have to be a cop in a major city for 1 year dealing with stupid people all day without getting any credible excessive force complaints. Not sure if I could be a cop at all, TBH.
That'd be easy. I'd do that in a heartbeat. Thanks, Greek. Steroids are pointless. That's why literally every single professional sport has steroid use ubiquitous in it. Natural functionality training. Yeah, which is not what professional athletes do. They all take steroids. Congratulations, you're a retard. What where do these people fucking come from? Who is this dumbass? So are you like a 9-year-old or something? That's the guy's channel.
Button, comment to boost the algo. Please go to AlgorX. Don't forget to watch one of those two bloops. If you're interested in being sponsored by HCLT, or if you'd like to sell these amazing supplements, for example,
New Frank Tufano mints. These look very stupid and apparently got a new roof. Yes, Farage didn't get a hair transplant. He's literally wearing a glue-on wig.
My past and I guess still current feud with Paul Saladino is one of the reasons I delayed my surgery with.
This is literally psychotic. He's claiming Saladino told Dr. Taban to botch him.
Dr. Taban for over
They don't
a
even
year.
know each other.
And a judge ordered that I cannot say that Paul Saladino copied.
Reformed prisoner, can I come out of timeout? As long as you're not retarded anymore, sure. There you go, you should be unbanned. Oh, wait. Yeah, he should be unbanned now. Thanks, dude.
Me, which kind of explains the whole scenario. And I don't want to go further into that, but the point is that he's in the club. These people are really connected. They don't like me. They've been trying to ruin my life for years. So if I go get a surgery with a doctor that's...
Yeah, this is literally schizophrenic. By the way, when he says in the club, he's talking about a secret society of Jews. Taban is like Persian or something. He's not even Jewish. He's fucking Middle Eastern. Like, it just makes no fucking sense from top to bottom.
In the club, are they going to do some sketchy stuff and botch me on purpose? And I think so, because the amount of tissue that Dr. Taban removed from my eyes during an orbital decompression is like someone going in for a knee replacement and waking up with the wrong leg chopped half off. It's that much of a crazy error. It's insane.
Sure.
The real question is, how much longer is this going to go on? It's been almost 3 years now. The judges are just paid off in dismissing my lawsuits, but that doesn't matter because I'm just going to keep filing appeals and keep refiling the lawsuits. You know, Dr. Taban, online reputation.
By the way, he's full of shit. He tried to retract his lawsuit, but he couldn't.
Is a complete joke. You know, he's literally turned into a meme at this point. So, I mean, I've said I will do this for 30 years, and I guess I'm going to have to start taking this even more seriously and really try to make sure there's an employee outside of his office all day, even though he turned the last one into a double agent, and just be really, really consistent about posting online and really going after plastic surgeons as a whole and the legal industry and all these judges. Like, I mean, it's insane that I've had to do this for almost 3 years now, and I guess we're just going to have to be even more professional and put even more effort into it. Because the behavior of Dr. Taban is clearly evil, malicious, psychopathic, sociopathic, and if everyone knew the crazy things he's done, first of all, silencing the hundreds of previous patients he's botched, scaring them to death legally. He tried to get a restraining order against me. After blinding me lying in bed all day, he tried to...
That's because Frank was harassing him.
Get a restraining order against me because I was talking about factual events that occurred online of how he performed the surgery on me. I'm convinced all these plastic surgeons are taught to be evil.
Yeah, Frank was threatening to come to his office and disturb his business. So Frank, I don't know why he thinks it'd be unreasonable for him to get a restraining order.
During their training, during residency, it's ingrained in their culture to lie, gaslight, manipulate, and treat their patients in a way to extract
This is exactly what Frank does, by the way. Lie, gaslight, and manipulate.
as much money as possible. They would never do the right thing. They would never issue a refund. They would never try to do revisions for free. Lie, gaslight, get the paycheck.
He's so stupid. All right. Well, it looks like you got a new roof.
You guys have been asking me for a house update for a few months now. And we did get the roof back on in April, right when the season ended. That was paid for before I went completely broke. It's just we couldn't do it in the winter season, so we got the roof covered. Only part that's not done is the chimney, yet the damage has been done to the inside of the house. If you guys are out of the loop, if you missed what happened, basically, I hired a roof company last year in the fall to do the roof. They walked off the job, left the roof open in the rain, and the whole house flooded. And then progressively throughout that fall and winter and the early part of this year, anytime it rained or snowed, we had stuff getting through the house. And at one point we did have the whole roof finally tarped up, but again, the damage had been done. The insurance company refused to pay me. It was meager insurance, gave me a policy through Nazareth Mutual, and then they had Gerald Williams Adjustment Service. There is a lawsuit in the state court. I'm filing a lawsuit in the federal court tomorrow because this is absurd. You know, we're talking $150,000 in damages. Basically, the whole entire house has to be gutted. I did get a construction loan, and I'm in even more debt now just because some of you guys are asking, am I congested? Why are you talking like that? I'm sick as hell from the mold in this house. I'm very sick all the time, and we're finally getting it torn out and replaced. So some of the siding is off because that's another thing. The guy that did the siding last year, a separate contractor, ruined the whole house. So all this siding that I paid for that was put up new last year, we're getting to that this week or next week. We're going to redo the whole outside of the house as well. So it should look nice if it ever gets finished. We'll start with the order of what we did in this house, which was the sunroom. I don't think I ever showed you guys my house before I renovated it because it wasn't that nice, but this whole room is done. I mean, there's just so much stuff in it because we're doing the living room right now, but this whole room is finished. It's pretty nice, looks good. This was all old windows along the whole thing. We got this sliding door and these windows from an auction. So we completely gutted the whole room. There's a nice tile floor in here. Full gut. Ripped out all the drywall, re-insulated, redid the floor, ripped that all the way down to the subfloor. New plywood, cement board, tile on top of the bottom. All new insulation, all new sheetrock, all new windows, all new trim. I'll show you guys this, I guess, when we get this stuff out of here. But we have a new access to the backyard now. This wasn't here before, and we're gonna put a deck out there maybe soon. We might get to that this year. So the room we're working on now is the living room. We pretty much gutted most of it and have new in the process of putting new drywall up. All the windows in the house had to be reframed and brought out because we added foam to the outside of the house, and the guy that put the windows in didn't do it properly. So we recut out all the windows, brought them out a few inches, retrimmed them. So these windows have been brought out and retrimmed, just in the process of finishing that. So all of this has been re-insulated, new drywall. So
yes, I know what Diamond Gym is. I obviously wouldn't train there. Thanks for the donation. What's his name? Sosi?
you know, these were some pretty bad spots here where we had some mold damage. So all the spots that were bad in the garage and in here have pretty much been fixed. You can see there's some water damage there. The water was coming in here. And then we're gonna take out this propane stove and put in a pellet stove, but don't know what we're doing in here yet. This in here was where that dehumidifier leaked. So we painted that with some mold paint, and we have all this redone. But this has been over the course of a few months, guys. So we're basically gutting the whole house. We'll eventually do the kitchen too, but the kitchen's the only part that hasn't been touched yet. We did finish the windows in here. We got the windows reframed here, but I don't know when we're gonna do the kitchen because I don't want to be without a kitchen. This mudroom hasn't been done yet. Did quite a bit of plumbing down in the crawl space for this new bathroom over here, but what's been taking most of the past 2 months is these two garages. So it's been a lot of work in here. I don't think I really showed you guys it earlier, but again, this is a full gut. We ripped out everything. There were like shelves over here. That wasn't there. I wish I should have taken it before.
Why did he do this stupid shit in the fucking first place? Where he ruined his house?
Before and after. But the drywall's pretty much all done in here. The only thing that's left to be done is we have to just...
yeah, I think he was trying to commit insurance fraud.
Maybe put some mortar here, make that look nice, do the bottoms, and then we'll paint it and we're done. We're going to put this rubber matting back in here and then another layer of rubber matting over that, brand new. Have two nice layers of of rubber on the floor for the gym. We added these 2 windows. These 2 windows were not in here before, and that was not there. It was just an attic going up to the stairs going up to the attic. We sheetrocked everything, we framed it in, and we put a door there. So now that attic is closed off with a door, and now we'll have a nice room here with a lot more light for the gym. Adding those 2 windows in this room made it really nice. New door, new everything. Basically rebuilding the whole house from the inside. All this insulation up here was like soaking wet. There was a lot of mold damage. There's more insulation in the ceilings of these 2 garages than the whole house combined. It's like an insane amount of insulation. So same thing in here. Ripped out everything, reframed all the windows. There were 2 windows here. We took them out, we reframed them, slightly bigger windows, I think. And then that window over there, we reframed it. This wall was...
I've seen you develop high T opinions post steroids. Now that you're on steroids, you should give Halo a try.
Halo what? The video game? No. Thanks, dumbass.
This wall wasn't here, and there was a lot of plumbing and stuff here, so we added a new wall and brought everything out. So we added, we could put 2 washing machines in here now. We put service for 2 washing machines. We put service for 2 dryers. Not that I think I'll need them. And this window, we made a nook here when we brought that wall out. And we also added this. We framed out some new wall to just close off the water heater. And we also replumbed the well, and we replumbed the electric.
Why do you shop at Walmart instead of your independent? It might have something to do with Walmart being cheaper and having items that independent doesn't have that I want.
Electric water heater just with new piping coming up from the well. So this is what we've been working on the past few weeks now. Hopefully another week or 2, both of these garages are painted and completely done, and we can get the gym equipment back in here. Unfortunately, this wall has to stay open until we redo the other bathroom, which has to happen. And something that's been taking a lot of time is we turned this bathroom, which was just like a
Steroids really work, huh? Yeah, obviously. Any negatives you experience? No. I'm 24, I've been training for a few years, still scrawny. Should I hop on? Do whatever the hell you want. Whether you hop on or not, it's your decision. I'm not your fucking dad. Do whatever the hell you want. Thanks, dude.
wash sink and a toilet. We're making it into a bathroom with a shower. So we have this nice corner shower here. That's all ready to go. We're basically almost finished with this room. We just got to put the sink in, put the baseboard heat in, then the toilet can go in, mirror. Added that Panasonic Whisper. Nice vent in there. That vents out to the soffit. So a lot of work went into this tiny bathroom here, but now when we redo the other bathroom, I'll have a fully functioning bathroom to use. That was the thought behind this. It's kind of silly having a bathroom this nice next to the gym, but if this room ever does turn into a bedroom, which is probably what you do in a new house, if you don't want a gym, that could be a bathroom for this bedroom over here. So it's pretty much what we've been doing in here. All new lighting in here. Have to also reinstall the lighting in the garage, but it's been a lot of...
So apparently he took out another loan for all of this. Like, this guy is so retarded. Like, again, we're assuming he tried to commit insurance fraud, and then he couldn't get the money, and then he took out a loan to fix everything. Like...
work. So this room's gonna get completely gutted too. I don't know when, maybe soon. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the living room and the siding as we're
Dude, his entire fucking house is redone.
Working between the living room and the siding, and the deck. With the good weather, we're gonna try to refinish all the siding and the deck, and then once that's done, we got to finish this living room, redo all the floors in the whole house, and completely gut the bedrooms too. So the bedrooms have to be gutted just like they haven't been touched yet. And then what's going to take maybe a long time is we're going to also have to redo this bathroom here. This bathroom that guy did.
Like, he's reconstructing his entire fucking house now.
A really crappy job of is going to have to be completely redone. So rip all this tile out, rip all the cement board, and then once everything is finished, this living room, all this floor, both bedrooms, all the floors in the bedrooms, once every single thing in this house is done, the deck, the siding, once everything is done, we'll do the kitchen last. We'll bang out the kitchen, and here we're probably going to try to keep the cabinets and the countertop. If we break it, we break it, we'll get a new one, but this, we're just going to tile everything and try to keep all the same fixtures in here. But that might not happen for a little while. Basically rebuilt the whole house, basically. When I tell you this is a $150,000 job, now you can kind of see why.
How did we go from women screaming about the patriarchy in 2016 to them being the loudest supporters of communism and Islamic terrorism in 2026 VG?
Too many dumb white chicks going to college. That's how. Thanks, Dodo. His entire house isn't even, like, fucking worth 150K. Like, this is just psychotic.
We ripped the whole house apart. We redid all the insulation. And that doesn't include, we still have to go up in the attic and take out all, and I'm going to get a company to do that. Take out all the blown in insulation and put new stuff in because it got all wet and ruined from what happened here. You can kind of see that over here. That's the blown in insulation that was coming down from the attic. I mean, we'll get to that kitchen eventually, but we got a lot to do right now between this living room, the pellet stove, the siding, all that stuff. Yeah, I just didn't really have the money for this. You know, I should have used that loan money for my business, but I mean, what am I supposed to do? I can't live like this. It's kind of crazy, and I'm basically living in a construction zone now, and it's going to be a construction zone for at least another few months. I mean, hopefully we finish this year.
Is this guy, like, gonna end up homeless at some point? Like, he just seems to make the absolute worst financial decisions imaginable.
But, you know, it's not like I'm going to get my money back. You know, we still have to pressure this insurance company, make sure they pay me, and you know, that's $150,000, not including the stuff I'm redoing on my own. That's $150,000 for the water damage stuff. That doesn't include me redoing the siding. That doesn't include me having to fix the HVAC system. That's a whole separate insurance claim that contractor's insurance should have paid me for. So hopefully something happens in the courts. I find it hard to believe these people are able to just screw me over so easily and not pay me. Like, my house literally gets flooded and ruined, and I have to do all this on my own dime, all my own money. It's crazy, you know. I was eventually planning to, you know, upgrade my house and do a few things here and there, but by no means would that have involved tearing out the sheetrock and re-insulating the entire house. It wasn't necessary, you know. Besides the water and mold damage from the flooding through the roof, it didn't really need to be replaced, you know. All the insulation was in pretty good shape. Everything was insulated. There was nothing wrong with anything. But because of that water damage, we had to tear it out and redo it. I mean, there's a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We didn't have to fix it. If there was no water damage, if there was no mold, we wouldn't have there was no reason to tear it out. It's not like it was built poorly. It was built okay. It wasn't built perfectly, but it was built okay. It was nice enough. You know, it was just overkill.
We might play Dying Light later, yeah.
You know, I think I called two or three companies to get a quote on this, and none of them even wanted to touch it, you know. None of them wanted to touch it. This is such a huge project, like, I don't want to get started. So, also the guy that we put these gutters up, because they didn't do the fascia trim right and stuff. We gotta take all the gutters down, all the fascia trim down, redo that with the...
This has to be a troll VG. Frank has to be trolling. What a fucking parasite. Why does Frank exist VG?
Probably because of two people making a bad decision at a New Year's party. Thanks, Strong Green.
The soffit, but I'm probably going to get a gutter company to do it anyway. So hopefully, what is it? Just August just started. August, September. Hopefully by the end of September, we're kind of in a better organized spot. But we'll see. It's a lot of work. We're banging stuff out every week, and there's just too much to do over here. You know, I don't have time to really do this myself. I have a couple guys helping me, but you know, I'm trying to focus on the business, but it's really just a bunch of nonsense. So Tufano should have wrote a check for $15 million already. I should be living in a mansion, not worrying about this mold-infested shithole. But that's the game plan. Basically, rebuilt my house from scratch, custom. When we redo the bedrooms, I might I don't need it. It's not.
Dodo. Anyone saying the far left is the same as Omega as a fascist sympathizer? Reads books and realizes every time far leftists get into power, they cause massive famines that lead to deaths of millions of their own citizens. They kill every other leftist that they suspect will try to take over. Mark Ruffalo. The centrist Democrats should probably start talking about affordability and not Hassan Piker. Oh my god. The voters have had it with their coziness with AIPAC, Israel corporations, oligarchs. Dude, Mark Ruffalo is like a brain-broken faggot. Every single DSA simp, centrist Dem should really start talking about thing every Dem has been talking about for literally decades. Yeah. German nurse on how security in the ERs has changed due to mass immigration. If 2 air boys need to be taken care of, I'm not sending 2 girls in. As soon as certain surnames come up, we bring in the police. She speaks about the problem with clan members. It usually doesn't take long for 20, 30, 40 family members to show up in front of the hospital. They have special Telegram groups where they alert each other and they want to make their presence felt in a way that's often aggressive. Or here, we stand by our people. You can expect trouble if anything happens to them. In these circles, it's common for the mothers and women to scream loudly and in high drama. This high noise level is a stress factor for the staff. Yeah, well, you know, it's what immigrants do. Cultural enrichment. Number of U.S. service members reported wounded or killed in the Iran wars. Added scores of new troops. Okay, thanks, Dodo.
Not necessary because this house is already radiation proof, but I might show you guys how to do the aluminum mesh in one room, just for like sample. So when we take the sheetrock out of the bedroom, I'll put mesh on the wall before we sheetrock it again, just to show you guys like, hey, this is how you would radiation proof one room on your own instead of doing the whole house.
Oh my god, radiation proofing.
And if you didn't, you know, I don't want to get into that, but you know, there's just a lot of little things to do. Like once we have the siding, once the outside and the siding is fixed and the new gutters are up, I'll feel a lot more comfortable because then a lot of the bulk of the work will be done, and then it's kind of like I'll feel like we're in the home stretch. You know, right now we're in the middle of a lot of things. You know, the garages are like both 80, 90% done. That small bathroom in there is like 95% done. You know, we're halfway in the middle of the living room. The siding still needs to get torn apart. So we're in the middle of a lot of different projects. But once all these are tied up and done, then we'll just have the bedrooms to bang out the flooring, and the deck seems a lot more manageable than what we're doing now.
You feel bad for Frank. I feel bad having you in chat. Bye-bye. See you later.
So that's the house update.
I feel bad for an animal abuser who makes, what, $5 million a year in gross revenue? Torturing and killing animals? Get the fuck out of my chat, fucking loser.
Gonna file the federal lawsuit against those insurance companies tomorrow. You know, at least be reasonable, you know. You could have paid me something. You know, what really should have happened was, and what normally happens is, they're supposed to go after the the insurance company of the contractor. They're supposed to go after the contractor and get you paid. And if they can't, they're supposed to compensate you themselves. But they didn't try to help me at all. They just denied the claim. I've never heard of this happening in my life. You know, that first contractor that destroyed my bathroom, my HVAC system, and my siding and my windows, they should have gone after. What they're supposed to do is, legally, the contractor has to fix that himself. But if not, the and usually the contractor's insurance company won't even cover it, but that's if it's shoddy workmanship. I don't think this counts as shoddy workmanship. I think this counts as destroying a fucking house. You know, the HVAC system is half destroyed.
Okay, that's just fucking retarded. He's the one who decided to strip his roof in, like, middle of winter or whatever it was.
The windows were half destroyed. The siding was destroyed. It didn't even, I think it was totaled. I don't think it even qualified as shoddy workmanship. It was done so poorly, you know. It's not like you just need to fix a few things here and there. You have to tear out and redo the whole job new. And that guy is a ghost. He's never going to do that. So, you know, my insurance company should have really helped me and gone after them, and they should have had to pay me, you know, a lot of fucking money, a lot of money, because I paid that guy to do all those jobs. I paid him an agreed hourly rate. I paid for all the materials and supplies and equipment. I paid for all of it, you know, not nearly as much as it would have been to pay a contractor, but I still paid for it.
So he admits he paid some random fucking dude who wasn't a fucking contractor, and then he's like complaining that he did a bad job. Oh, what a surprise.
Well, that's it, guys.
Like this had to have been an attempt at insurance fraud.
I'll probably ramble and show you guys around this house for a while, but hopefully we get this fixed up. I was thinking about honestly going out to California for a few months while these guys worked on my house to and just hang around.
I have no money. I'm broke. I just took out a $150,000 loan to literally reconstruct my entire house, and I might go to a vacation in California. Okay.
Outside Dr. Taban's office to get paid, but the thing is, I have to kind of watch these guys and make sure they know everything, what to do. Why is this? Did they really take my bug zapper plug and hide? What the fuck is going on, dude? I can't win. This garage door is new too, but once the siding is done, which is a big project, once the siding is done, we'll be in a good spot.
Well, he's still nice and retarded, as usual.
In Australia, Linda Matthews is watching her husband, Brad, lose control. Fear rises up from the pit of her stomach. She's never seen him like this before, but Brad is hooked on a strong opioid painkiller called tapentadol. Marco lives in Berlin, Germany. He's 23 years old. A few years ago, he bought a special printer that lets him create a very specific type of document. Prescriptions for a drug called tramadol. Today, he's taking one to a pharmacy for the last time. In Zico's hometown of Lomé, Togo, tramadol is known as the poor man's cocaine. He pops one and hops in his moto taxi to start his shift. An invisible thread runs through these people's stories. It leads back to an industrial town in Germany near the Dutch border, Stolberg. One of the world's leading painkiller manufacturers is based here. It's called Grunenthal, and the global pharma giant has a controversial past. One of Grunenthal's key products is the opioid tramadol. Some experts warn that it's too loosely regulated, that it seems to be acting as a gateway drug. Meanwhile, in European countries like Germany, concern is growing over young people misusing prescription meds. Some experts see signs of an emerging opioid crisis. In parts of Africa, tramadol has already fueled a crisis of its own. And a little over a decade ago, Grunenthal started pushing a new and even stronger opioid onto the global market, tapentadol. Doctors have allegedly been actively encouraged to prescribe it. Potential risks may have been downplayed, and regulatory oversight may have fallen short. Some have compared Grunenthal's methods to those of an American pharmaceutical company, Purdue Pharma, and their opioid Oxycontin. Are we looking at a new opioid crisis? One made in Germany?
Together, we strive to make it possible.
Tramadol is highly abused in many African countries.
A world free of pain.
Nous tous on prend ça. C'est le truc même qui va te contrôler et ça va te créer des problèmes.
You might think here are the clean guys and here are the bad guys, but it's just a different way of influencing.
Da merkt man einfach wieder mal, dass die Pharmaindustrie da geht's rein Geld.
The head of the working group was actually a professor.
Pain medications are like so fucking stupid. There's absolutely no reason to prescribe pain medications for ongoing pain. They're completely and utterly ineffective. The only situation where they make sense is just temporarily for a week, like after surgery. But it's just crazy how they still hand them out like fucking candy.
Whose whole professorship was sponsored
a través del tratamiento de una novedosa molécula que se llama tapentadol.
All opioids have the potential to get people dependent.
Unsere Sohn soll nicht umsonst gestorben sein. Das ist es.
We've come to Vienna to continue to sound the alarm around the dangers of synthetic drugs.
It's the 67th session of the CND, the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs. For just over a week, delegates, member state representatives, NGOs, and experts gather in Vienna to discuss global drug policy.
Agencies, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Justice, drug policy, drug enforcement, everyone is here.
Among them is Maria Christoph, an investigative journalist. She worked with reporters from 10 countries on a large-scale investigation into opioid abuse, led by the Examination. The team first looked at American company Purdue Pharma.
It's considered to be one reason for the opioid crisis over there.
OxyContin killed more than 450,000 Americans.
Purdue's flagship product was the opioid painkiller OxyContin, which was intended to treat severe pain. The company claimed the drug wasn't addictive, that it was unlikely to cause withdrawal symptoms, and that it had low abuse potential. And from the late 90s onward, OxyContin was widely prescribed for all kinds of pain, from chronic conditions to minor back pain and even toothaches. Purdue's...
Buddy, like, it's funny how pharmaceutical companies can say this and then, like, weed is still illegal in how many states? And how many countries? Oh, man. Society is just a complete and utter fucking joke. I remember I tried OxyContin once when, I was hospitalized for that E. coli infection. For whatever reason, OxyContin made me super, super miserable. I felt like shit on it. Morphine made me feel good, Percocets made me feel good, but OxyContin made me feel fucking miserable.
These claims turned out to be false, and millions of patients got addicted to opioids. Consequently, over the last 24 years, more than 800,000 people have died from overdoses of opioids, both legal and otherwise. The U.S. opioid crisis is still raging today. Every year, tens of thousands still die from synthetic street opioids like fentanyl. But at the UN conference, Maria keeps hearing the same thing. Purdue and OxyContin are old news. Instead, people at the CND toss around other names, tramadol and tapentadol. Maria's intrigued. Both products were originally developed by a German firm, Grunenthal. Like Purdue Pharma, Grunenthal is a family business. And from what Maria hears, that's not all they have in common.
What some experts actually told us is, you might think here are the clean guys, Grünenthal, and here are the bad guys, Purdue Pharma. But it's just a different way of working, of influencing. In some way, it's a similar playbook, even though it's not as straightforward.
Bradley Fort lives in Victoria, Australia with his wife Linda Matthews. From 2016 to 2018, he was addicted to oxycodone, a semi-synthetic opioid painkiller. For the past year, he's managed to stay off opioids. But now he's suffering from chronic headaches. His doctor prescribes a new opioid, Palexia.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Oh, you were addicted to opioids? Here's opioids.
That's Grunenthal's tapentadol-based painkiller. Here in Australia, it's licensed to and sold by another company. The packaging warns that Brad might face a higher risk of addiction due to his history with prescription drugs. But he trusts his doctor.
I know your address. Can I send you fan mail? Sure, go for it. Thanks for the donation, not a creep.
Doctor. Linda, on the other hand, is worried. A year later, Linda gives birth to triplets. Brad is still taking tapentadol, and the pills leave him drowsy, barely able to help with the kids. And whenever he goes into withdrawal, this otherwise peaceful man becomes irritable and aggressive. Today, things have gone completely out of control. When he misses the triplets' first Christmas, Linda has had enough. Brad needs to move out. 5 months later, he's found dead. The cause is an overdose of tapentadol and oxycodone. Opioids work differently.
So his dumb bitch wife killed him.
Than the painkillers many of us have at home. Drugs like ibuprofen, aspirin, and paracetamol can help relieve a headache.
Yeah, he literally killed himself because his wife kicked him out.
Or ease your pain. Opioids do that too, but they can also prompt your body to release endorphins. These are chemical messengers produced by the body itself. They reduce the perception of pain and increase feelings of well-being. Our bodies release them when we laugh, exercise, or have sex. They also influence our body temperature, hormone levels, and appetite. But one of their main functions is as natural pain relievers. Imagine you fall off your bike and hurt your knee. In response, your body releases endorphins. They attach themselves to opioid receptors located along pain-processing nerve pathways in the brain and spinal cord. By doing so, they
Diatomaceous earth bad for you or doesn't do anything? What the fuck even is that?
inhibit the transmission of pain signals to the brain. So while the injury is still there, the pain becomes bearable. For many types of injury, the body simply can't produce enough natural pain relievers. But thousands of years ago, humans discovered a natural substance that attaches to the very same pain receptors: opium. The word opium comes from Greek. It means juice, referencing the milky sap of the poppy, which the drug is extracted from. Some sources say the Greek physician Hippocrates mentioned it as early as 400 BC. Others indicate that opium was used for medical purposes much earlier, in ancient Egypt. Centuries later, opium became deeply embedded in Roman medicine. In some parts of the empire, there were hundreds of opium pharmacies. Several Roman emperors appear to have been addicted to the stuff. A little later, Chinese surgeons also used opium, primarily as an anesthetic. The earliest known evidence of opium use was found in the Levant region. These ceramic vessels were probably used to store opium poppies. Roughly 3,400 years later, in the German town of Paderborn, a pharmacist named Friedrich Seeturner is experimenting with opium poppies. Eventually, Seeturner isolates a substance that can be dosed far more precisely than raw opium juice: morphium. Today, it's called morphine. His discovery lays the foundation for modern pain therapy. Morphine is an opiate because it's derived directly from the latex of the opium poppy, whereas the term opioid refers to all substances that act on opioid receptors, including partially or fully synthetic drugs. To this day, morphine remains the benchmark used to measure how effectively other opioids suppress pain. Tramadol and Tilidine are only 10 to 17% as potent. Purdue's OxyContin is roughly twice as effective as morphine. And fentanyl is 70 to 100 times stronger. That's why it's so dangerous. One of the strongest...
Okay, thanks for the donation, dude. Want to send you a shirt with a Rob Ford on it, but hope you'll wear it on stream. What a double XL fit. I'm usually a double or triple XL. Usually it's pretty safe where a double XL will fit.
Opioids currently approved for medical use on humans is sufentanil. It's up to 1,000 times more potent than morphine. By the late 19th century, Germany is a leading center for chemical and pharmaceutical innovation. Manufacturers like Stada and Bayer lead the way. At the time, many people in Europe and the US are addicted to morphine. In 1898, Bayer launches one of the first commercially available opioids. Bayer claims it's less addictive than morphine and much safer. It's marketed as a harmless analgesic for pains and coughs, and in Germany, it's sold over the counter. The new drug is such a hit. You may have heard of it today. It's called heroin. It and other opioids soon become widespread recreational drugs. But as the 20th century rolls on, countless new laws regulate the use of opioids. Many of the drugs are now available only in hospitals and pharmacies. And there's a good reason for this. People who become addicted to opioids eventually build up a tolerance. So to keep feeling the same effects, they need to up their dose or consume stronger opioids, which leads to a higher risk of overdose. When someone ODs, their breathing can slow dramatically, making the supply of oxygen to the brain insufficient. This can lead to unconsciousness, coma, or even cardiac arrest, which often causes permanent brain damage. Mixing opioids with alcohol or other drugs further increases the risk. The worst-case scenario is sudden death. For many big pharmaceutical companies, the past few decades have been a roller coaster. For years, Purdue Pharma pushed its opioids through aggressive marketing and lobbying. In 2020, the company agreed to a settlement potentially worth $8.3 billion for its role in fueling America's opioid crisis. The year before, the company had already filed for bankruptcy. Since then, many pharmaceutical companies have come to consider the opioid business too risky. In 2021, pharma giant Johnson & Johnson stopped selling opioids in the US entirely. And as part of bankruptcy proceedings in 2024, Endo Health Solutions agreed to drastically scale back its marketing and selling of opioids. The withdrawal of Purdue Pharma and other big pharmaceutical companies left a vacuum, and that may have benefited the companies that continued betting on opioids. One of these players is Grünenthal.
Together, we strive to make it possible. Our vision, a world free of pain.
Compared to most German pharmaceutical giants, Grünenthal is still a relatively young company, but it has a remarkably controversial history. Germany 1946, a year after the end of World War II. In the court of Nuremberg, high-ranking Nazis are on trial for their horrible crimes. Outside, the country is in ruins. People clear rubble with their bare hands. Many are physically and emotionally scarred. In West Germany, the entrepreneurial Wirtz family believes it knows what the broken country needs now: medicine. So far, the family business has mainly produced detergent. But in 1946, they found Chemie Grünenthal GmbH. It becomes the first company to bring penicillin to the German market. The young pharmaceutical firm recruits a large number of scientists. Dr. Heinrich Mukta becomes the new head of research. He's accused of conducting brutal and even lethal experiments on concentration camp prisoners during the Nazi era. But after the war, he apparently avoided being tried in Poland by fleeing west. He was never formally convicted. Heinz Baumkutter was
what the fuck?
A physician at Sachsenhausen concentration camp. He's believed to have conducted experiments on prisoners, including children. He was accused of injecting inmates with hepatitis pathogens and burning their skin with phosphorus. After the war, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison, but he had already spent time in pretrial detention and in a Soviet prison, so he's released early and ends up working for Grunital. But the company's
They literally hired fucking Nazis? Kid Boo, do not watch this on screen. Great, stupid shit. Great, wonderful. Thanks for sending me that.
most famous ex-Nazi is probably Otto Ambros, a chemical weapons expert widely thought to have been one of the leaders of the Monowitz concentration camp. After the war, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. But 3 years later, he was released early for good behavior and appointed to the boards of several companies. In 1972, he became an advisor to Grunital. Reports suggest that after the war, the company employed at least 5 high-ranking former Nazis. Grunital
were they able to hire these people, like, for pennies on the dollar or something? Like, what a bizarre decision.
Confirms that it employed researchers who had held positions of power within the Nazi Party, but it claims this was common practice in Germany during the post-war years. Today, Grunital strongly condemns the Nazis' crimes and says it's committed to a free, diverse, and tolerant society. In the early 1960s, the family business ends up making global headlines, not for the war criminals working in its labs, but for what is still widely considered the biggest pharmaceutical scandal in European history. In 1957, Grunital introduces Contergan, a tranquilizer and sleeping pill. Active ingredient, thalidomide. Doctors explicitly prescribe it to pregnant women, and many take it for morning sickness or as a sleep aid.
Yeah. And then
the medication is sold under different names in nearly 50 countries. But then babies begin to be born with severe birth defects, including stunted or missing limbs. Today, we know this was caused by thalidomide interfering with fetal development during the early stages of pregnancy. Around 12,000 of these thalidomide babies were documented. At least a third died before their first birthday. The most common causes of death were bowel, cardiac, or renal failure. After 4 years on the market, Contergan is withdrawn. To this day, many of the survivors struggle with severe disabilities. In 2021, the Wirtz family publicly apologizes to those affected. The thalidomide tragedy is part of their corporate history, and they deeply regret the far-reaching consequences. The company told us it has a special moral responsibility in relation to the tragedy. It emphasized that its foundation, which funds projects that contribute to more independent lives for those affected, is an effort to support these individuals and their families. Back in the 1970s, the scandal almost completely ruined the young company's reputation. People around the world associated it with the thalidomide disaster. But in 1977, Grunital introduced a new drug to the German market, Tramol, with the active substance tramadol. It was the result of at least 15 years of research. Chemist Kurt Flick first synthesized it back in 1962. According to documents from the US Patent and Trademark Office, Grunital applied for a patent just a few years later. Developing a new drug takes resources, including huge amounts of time and money. Many compounds are abandoned long before market approval. Some never make it out of the research phase. That makes patent protection extremely important. Only the patent holder can profit from distributing a drug's active ingredient. That allows them to recoup the massive investment R&D requires. And according to Grunital, after its launch in 1977, tramadol became one of the world's most frequently prescribed analgesics. At the time, it's considered a weak opioid. Today, we know that simply wasn't true.
Ja, hallo, ich bin Tanja Nicole Albescheid. Mein Sohn ist vor 3,5 Jahren an einer Überdosierung Tramadol gestorben.
It's 2019. Marco is 20 years old. He likes going for walks in the woods and hanging out with his friends. Now and then he smokes weed. And he's just started experimenting with something new. The stronger the medication, the harder it is to get. In Germany, you can buy nasal sprays or throat lozenges in drugstores or supermarkets. But prescription drugs are only available at pharmacies. Marco somehow gets a hold of blank prescription forms, and he buys himself a new printer. With it, he starts doing something usually reserved for medical staff. Printing prescriptions for meds, like the anesthetic ketamine and the analgesic tramadol. We won't explain exactly how. We also strongly advise against taking medication without medical supervision or a real prescription. Marco's forged prescription is ready. He just needs to take it to a pharmacy. May 2022. Marco's been taking tramadol regularly for 3 years now. He's addicted to it. His grandmother watches him enter his apartment. He doesn't seem well. His mother texts him, but her messages only get a single checkmark. This happens frequently, so she doesn't think much about it. Maybe he's on something again and wants to be left alone. But 3 days pass without a word, so she drives to his apartment. She rings the doorbell over and over, but her son doesn't answer. So she calls the police. According to her, even after she tells them about Marco's history with alcohol and prescription drugs, they refuse to force the door open. After another 3 days pass, the police return. By this time, a foul smell is coming from the apartment.
Das war der 3.6.,
Gee, go figure.
wo mir das dann, ja.
Marco was just 23 years old. According to the autopsy report, he may have developed a tolerance to tramadol. There's enough of the drug in his blood to cause a coma or death. There's also alcohol, small amounts of paracetamol, and traces of the antipsychotic medication promethazine. All these findings point to a combined drug intoxication with tramadol. Unfortunately, Marco's story is far from unique. Society often debates the abuse of traditional drugs like alcohol, cocaine, amphetamines, and weed. But despite being a long-standing problem, the abuse of prescription medication is often overlooked. Depending on the source, between 1.5 and 2 million people in Germany are addicted to prescription drugs. That's about as many as are addicted to alcohol.
That's a weird statement. I think it's massively underreported how many people have a problem with alcohol, and like alcohol is just so culturally normal, and people don't realize how bad it is for you. So alcohol's a way bigger fucking problem.
Possibly more. In the US, 7.6 million people are addicted to prescription drugs, and teenagers and young adults in particular are experimenting with them more and more often. Many young users don't know how dangerous these substances can be. Maria Christoph tells us tramadol and tilidine are increasingly becoming gateway drugs. In 2023, 8 out of every 100 drug-related deaths in Germany involved opioid painkillers. Among 14 to 20-year-olds, it was 1 in 3. In England and Wales, opiates were even involved in a staggering 47% of all drug poisoning deaths. And the 2025 UN World Drug Report shows that opioids are by far the most involved substances in all drug-related mortality cases. The data were provided by 66 countries around the world. Apparently, prescription opioids are relatively easy to come by. Some order them via Telegram chats or darknet groups. Others simply snatch them from their grandparents' medicine cabinets. Some, like Marco, find ways to forge their...
Well, you can literally just order it online. That's how everybody gets this shit now.
...own prescriptions. If opioids like tapentadol and tramadol are so dangerous, then why aren't they more strictly regulated? Time to look more closely at how big pharma companies operate. Medical opioids are still urgently needed. Every day, hospitals around the world rely on them, especially for the treatment of severe pain and diseases like cancer. This tremendous need supports a global pharmaceutical industry, and Grunenthal has long been...
I thought we were done watching Fern VG because they were anti-syntemic tech anyway.
You know, whatever. Thanks for the donation, Dodo.
...a major player in it. Since tramadol's patent expired in the late 90s, countless manufacturers have been flooding the market with generic versions. A generic drug has the same active ingredient as its brand name counterpart, and it works the exact same way too, even if the name is different. With increased competition, prices dropped.
Tapentadol is the new best-selling drug that came after tramadol became a generic.
In 2010, Grunenthal introduces its new flagship drug in Germany. In the US, the FDA has already approved tapentadol back in 2008. Today, tramadol and tapentadol-based painkillers rank among the most prescribed opioids in many parts of the world. And Grunenthal seems willing to go to great lengths to protect its original brand name products. To understand how, we have to start in their home market, Germany. Before that, though, a crucial skill in this story is knowing how to interpret data. If you don't know how, it's a valuable skill to have. Learning's changing. Subscription at brilliant.org/fern. Our search leads us to Germany's medical regulatory agency, the Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices. Among other things, it's responsible for classifying medications as narcotics. A special subdivision, the Federal Opium Agency, regulates access to opioids like tramadol. We emailed them.
Well, in that case, this video is more interesting because how did a fat Chinese lady become China's biggest scammer? We've already watched that one.
Are closing in on her.
We've literally already watched that one. Thanks, Dodo.
To ask the head of the agency for an interview. They replied just a few hours later. Thank you for your inquiry. Unfortunately, due to limited resources, we are unable to offer you an interview. This was still several months before production for this video began, so we gave them a call and ended up speaking to the Institute's press officer. We introduced ourselves and requested a short call with the head of the opium agency. It's a hard no. We talked for 15 minutes, but the answer remains the same. Questions will only be answered in writing. Maria Christoph and her colleagues at the examination point us towards suspicious events in 2010 that might explain their silence. May 2010. Tramadol has been in the international market for about 30 years. Its patent expired a long time ago, so many manufacturers now produce it as a generic drug. The Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices has its headquarters here, Bonn, the former capital of West Germany. The Institute's expert committee on narcotics is meeting today. On the agenda is tramadol. The committee plans to regulate it more strictly. If they classify it as a narcotic, doctors will need a special tamper-proof form to prescribe it, a form that's much harder for people like Marco to fake. But the committee postpones any decisions. Then Grunital steps in. It sends a letter to the head of the Federal Opium Agency. It says it was surprised to see tramadol on the agenda, and it strongly advises against more restrictive measures. Regulating the drug more tightly in Germany could send the rest of
Congratulations, you're banned.
the world a fatal signal. The committee decides to take a closer look. 8 of the committee's 12 members form a dedicated working group. Its job is to look at scientific studies and data to evaluate factors like side effects and the drug's potential addictiveness. Eventually, it'll make a recommendation on whether or not tramadol should be more strictly regulated. Looking at the list of names in the working group, Maria Christoph can hardly believe her eyes.
So we looked at the names of the people who were part of this working group, and what we found is that a big amount of people were actually quite close to the company, which was most surprising to me, actually.
Yeah, the Koenigsegg Gamera is a cool car. Even if price was no object and I was like a billionaire, I don't think I'd ever get a Koenigsegg. They're not reliable cars. They're very low production, you know, like handmade fucking things. So they break down all the fucking time. And it's not like they have any service centers, you know, in your local area. So basically, you have to ship the car back to Europe, wait a billion years for them to fix it, and then you'll get it back like next year. Then you can drive it for another month or two until it breaks down again. So I'm not really into that.
Actually, was that the head of the working group on tramadol was actually a professor whose whole professorship was sponsored by the company Grünenthal. And still, they all told us that there were no conflicts of interest with regards to deciding whether tramadol should be more restricted or not.
In December 2011, the committee presents its final report. It does not recommend regulating tramadol more strictly. It does acknowledge the opioid's general abuse potential, but it sees no indication of an elevated risk of misuse or addiction. It's even described as less potentially addictive than stronger opioids. The committee unanimously decides that the drug will remain available without a special narcotic prescription. Many journalists, experts, and even politicians see a potential conflict of interest. They question whether people with such close ties to Grunital could really form unbiased opinions on how to handle one of the company's most relevant products. 15 years later, there are still doubts about this assessment. Maria Christoph says she and her colleagues talked to experts and looked at more recent studies. These all clearly point to tramadol carrying an elevated risk of addiction. Many users struggling with dependence told them they were hooked almost immediately. The Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices seems to disagree. It tells us it sees no evidence suggesting tramadol's potential for abuse was underestimated. It also claims it wasn't informed of any conflicts of interest that would have disqualified members from joining the working group. Many countries have much tougher rules. The UK, for example, classified tramadol as a Schedule III controlled drug back in 2014. Since then, it's been subject to tighter regulations.
Dude, pharmaceutical companies are just drug cartels. That's all they are. And they use this, like, bullshit, you know, legal nonsense, and, you know, all the lobbying and stuff they do just to, you know, keep a monopoly on the market. But, yeah, rather than just using direct violence like, you know, a Mexican drug cartel, they just, you know, do kind of white-collar type crime.
Regulation on prescription, storage, and documentation. France also considers tramadol a high-risk opioid due to its potential for abuse, dependence, and overdose. Canada, the US, and Sweden also tightly regulate tramadol.
Yeah, the Germans, so the ministry that is in charge of overlooking tramadol and other opioids actually says we cannot do this in Germany because this is the country where this drug comes from. If we restrict it even more than in other countries, they would have to do the same and follow our lead.
So Grunital.
If I came to you with $1 million and a military contract, make me a super solid serum for my army, what's their step going to be? We're invading a country.
Like, all steroids do the same thing, dude. There's nothing really special about any fucking steroids, so... Like, I guess test is fine. Thanks, dude.
May have influenced government decisions that could have negatively affected its product. But what's the company doing beyond its home market? How is tramadol's presumably safer successor, tapentadol, being pushed worldwide? Over the years, Grunenthal has increasingly focused on expanding its business in Latin America. Maria Christoph and her colleagues investigated how the company promotes its best-selling painkillers there.
So we also found in our investigation, especially our colleagues in Latin America found that there's a big influence on medical associations and on patient organizations. So the company is actually spending a lot of money, donating a lot of money to these organizations that then again have an influence on governments in certain regions, but also on the way how doctors prescribe this drug.
In many areas around the world, advertising prescription drugs directly to customers is heavily restricted or outright banned, including in parts of Latin America. So the marketing of opioid medications is often aimed exclusively at doctors and pharmacists, that is, at the people who decide whether these drugs get prescribed, and not directly at patients. Maria Christoph and her colleagues found that Grunenthal appears to be following a softer version of the Purdue
Never
playbook.
seen a cone exec
So
in
what
Canada.
Purdue did was very straightforward. They told doctors, okay, our opioid doesn't get people addicted. There's also another way to do this by sponsoring scientific research, by giving money to patient organizations. So doing it a bit smoother and less obvious, probably, but having a similar influence.
Many pharmaceutical companies fund medical organizations and patient groups. These organizations often represent patients in public health debates and help shape healthcare policy. The examination found that over the last decade, Grunenthal paid more than $9 million to at least 900 European patient groups. It reportedly supported similar groups in Latin America, too. In its response to us, Grunenthal claims these payments were for clearly defined services, and that the company never expected them to influence how doctors prescribe medication. But the journalists at the examination uncovered several controversial methods. In Mexico, a pain association funded by Grunenthal reportedly lobbied Congress to loosen regulations around prescribing tapentadol. In its statement to us, the company claims it never financially supported anyone with the goal of weakening prescription.
Hey, Rich, longtime viewer. Okay, hey, dude. Thanks, big fan.
Rules. In Peru, the head of a similar pain association reportedly promoted tapentadol as less addictive than traditional opioids to a room full of doctors at a pain conference. He allegedly told them the drug could be a source of profit. Grunenthal says it only learned about the incident through journalists. The company admits to sponsoring the conference, but not the lecture or the speaker in question. The examination also found these Spanish-language training platforms. Both were created by Grunenthal and cater to healthcare professionals like doctors in at least 10 countries. On one, the journalists found this training video.
El día de hoy hablaremos sobre una cápsula muy interesante que compete a todos nosotros, tanto profesionales de la salud como el público en general, y este es el dolor, a través del tratamiento de una novedosa molécula que se llama tapentadol.
The speaker in the video is Silvia Allende Perez, the head of a public pain clinic in Mexico. She doesn't mention that she's also a former Grunenthal employee.
So on the educational website of Grunenthal in Mexico, we found that a doctor was actually promoting the drug tapentadol as less addictive and as a better drug in comparison to other drugs.
In her presentation, Perez promotes tapentadol and its advantages over other opioids. One of the Grunenthal-branded slides claims the drug's potential for abuse is minimal. The slide also downplays the risk of the drug causing respiratory depression, that is, breathing slowing down to the point of being life-threatening. It claims there were no reports of respiratory depression. But a 2017 study on tapentadol's post-market development concludes that it's actually a major clinical concern with this type of analgesics. The package information also lists respiratory depression as a known side effect. And yet, in 2024, this training video claiming the contrary remained accessible on a platform created by Grunenthal.
So we confronted the company with this video, and actually they took it offline because they said that you're right, this material is not what our scientific research and what our knowledge at the moment is supporting, and this is why they took off this material.
Grunenthal's response to us also acknowledges that some of the slide's claims were incorrect. It says it takes incidents like this seriously and has therefore reviewed all remaining content on the training platform. Grunenthal also commissioned additional studies on tapentadol. It's relatively common in the pharmaceutical industry for companies to fund studies on their own drugs. Before a study or article is published in medical journals, it's usually subject to peer review, meaning independent experts review it anonymously. This process is meant to ensure quality and credibility, and physicians and pharmacists often rely heavily on these publications. But even peer
Oh, you're bored? Okay, cool. You're banned. Go watch some other fucking stream.
reviewed publications don't automatically guarantee full independence. Take this article on tapentadol published in the journal CNS Drugs in 2014. At the time, the author
Love how this dumbass also recommends me watch a fucking channel that it basically has firearms content that I can't fucking watch and would get me banned from YouTube. The fuck out of here, retard.
were all Grunenthal employees. The paper claims that the reduced dependence seen with tapentadol might be due to the fact that the drug acts on two separate bodily systems that affect pain. Maria Christoph tells us she and her colleagues showed these studies and articles to experts. Each said they couldn't find any evidence to support these claims. Yet other scientific publications have cited them, which appears to provide additional validation. According to the examination, Grunenthal relied on these studies' results to train its sales representatives to promote the drug. In the United States, Grunenthal initially licensed the marketing rights for tapentadol to Johnson & Johnson. In 2012, J&J was already collaborating with researchers to examine whether the drug's dual mechanism might reduce its risk of causing addiction. In an email to a colleague, one of these researchers wrote, "I don't know of any evidence to support that, but I can live with the people at J&J believing this to be true." To which their colleague replied, "I don't completely get it either." Grunenthal declined to comment on this email exchange. However, the company admits there isn't sufficient evidence to support the claim that tapentadol's dual mechanism reduces its abuse potential. It claims it repeatedly pointed out that the drug's abuse potential is similar to those of other strong opioids. Still, Grunenthal apparently managed to present its new product as a good opioid, or at least as a better one.
So we have on the one hand the strong opioid, the dangerous drug, oxycodone, that is the reason why a lot of people got addicted from opioids in the United States. And on the other hand, we have tapentadol, a drug that actually works quite similar to oxycodone, but is considered a weaker opioid, or at least this is what is in a lot of people's minds. It's a more clean drug, it's less addictive, but this what we found out in the end is not true. Experts we spoke with said it's actually not the scientific research we conducted that is supporting this argument that this drug is less addictive than this drug.
Grunenthal tells us their materials are based exclusively on data from peer-reviewed medical journals, and that whenever that data allowed for comparison to other products, the findings were cited accordingly. But in many countries, Grunenthal's tapentadol has already overtaken generic versions of oxycodone. In Mexico, prescriptions for oxycodone dropped sharply after 2020, while those for tapentadol have increased massively. According to the data collected by the examination, Peru has been spending more and more public money on tapentadol since 2019, significantly more than it did on oxycodone during the entire previous decade. These developments don't automatically...
To be fair, this whole new YouTube firearms policy being enacted is bullshit anyway.
Yeah, it's fucking retarded. It just makes no fucking sense. I don't know why they have this, like, anti-gun hard-on. It's fucking retarded. Thanks, Dodo.
...mean abuse is rising too. It could even mean that more patients are finally getting access to much-needed pain medication. So far, there's no evidence of widespread, unregulated opioid prescription in Latin America. But what's happened in the United States shows just how quickly markets can shift. Aggressive marketing, downplayed risks, and rising prescription numbers can trigger developments that are extremely difficult to contain down the stretch. Grunenthal argues that strict regulation of their opioids, specifically in Germany, could send a negative signal to other countries, especially to regions already struggling with limited access to opioid painkillers. So let's look at these regions. In some parts of India, reports of tapentadol abuse have been piling up for years. These drugs aren't typically produced by Grunenthal. They're generic versions from local manufacturers. They're often illegally combined with muscle relaxants. During the 2010s, tapentadol appears to have been available in India without the need for a prescription. It wasn't until 2021 that India's health ministry began responding to growing abuse of the drug. But the most devastating consequences can be seen in Africa. Parts of the continent have been dealing with a severe opioid crisis for years now.
Tramadol is highly abused in many African countries, especially in Western Africa.
This plant is commonly known as the African peach. In Cameroon, it's used to treat ailments like pain, malaria, and fever. A team of Cameroonian and French researchers wants to find out what exactly gives this plant its supposedly analgesic properties. They end up finding an active ingredient in the root bark. When they analyze it, they can't believe their eyes. In medicine, this exact structure is known as tramadol. The compound they've just found in the plant is chemically identical to the opioid Grunenthal developed in a lab decades ago. Up until now, tramadol has been considered a fully synthetic, man-made drug. Can this really be true? To make sure, the researchers examined plants from 3 different places in Cameroon, collected during different seasons. They find tramadol in every single sample. By now, they've ruled out accidental contamination. They're sure the substance must be of natural origin. Their discovery makes headlines around the world. Now they want to understand how exactly the plant is able to biologically synthesize tramadol, but they'll never get the chance. A year later, this study is published. 4 other researchers debunked the allegedly groundbreaking find. The tramadol found in the African peach clearly doesn't have a natural origin. It's man-made. The team also finds the synthetic opioid in other plants, in soil samples, and inside well water. Some of the water samples reveal alarmingly high concentrations. Tramadol has made its way into the groundwater. Cameroon isn't the only African country affected. Many people in Togo, Nigeria, Ghana, and Egypt have also become dependent on tramadol. According to the United Nations, non-medical use of tramadol has been a growing problem on the continent since at least 2013. Some African countries are facing full-blown opioid crises. Zico works as a moto-taxi driver in Lomé, the capital of Togo.
Quand il y a embouteillage, c'est nous. On faufile dans les voitures et vite, on va te déposer. Je travaille 12 heures de temps, ce que je commence à 6 heures du matin. Ça fatigue trop.
He describes his experience in this fantastic documentary. He came to the city to make money.
Hey Rich, happy to see you're still black. I remember when you used to be insecure you weren't born white. Is it true you slap tofu sometimes because you're jealous of its skin color? That violates PETA, purely ethical tofu advocates. Please reconsider.
All right, thank you for that. Appreciate the donation, dude.
Money. He and his colleagues live on the street, and they're addicted to tramadol.
Le tous vont prendre ça. Si tu as pris ta dose, ça va te faire du bien, tu vas bien travailler. Mais si tu as abusé, c'est le truc même qui va te contrôler. Et ça va te créer des problèmes.
Zico uses tramadol to get through his 12-hour shifts and the rest of the day. He takes about 2 pills a day. But the tramadol he consumes doesn't come from Grunitol. The company tells us it doesn't distribute tramadol in West Africa. Instead, the market is flooded with cheap generic versions illegally trafficked from China and India. And counterfeits, which often contain higher or lower doses than their packages suggest. Some contain no tramadol at all. Zico doesn't need an expensive printer to get his pills. Tramadol is everywhere. Users can buy it in pharmacies, at roadside stalls, or on the black market. As the original developer of tramadol, Grunitol may be morally responsible for what's happening in these African countries, but only indirectly. At the same time, the company has obviously been lobbying against stricter regulation, especially in Germany. Remember its claim that the regulation would send a fatal signal to the rest of the world. That doesn't sound coherent to us.
But this is the argument that also the company was spreading. So in my opinion, and what experts told us, this has no direct connection. You care about the people in Germany, and you have to take care that people don't get addicted. In African countries, there's other regulations, and there's other possibility to have a safe environment. But this is what they say and what they put in the mind of people.
Maybe Grunitol was worried that regulating the product more strictly in its original market could send an entirely different signal. Namely, that the drug is more harmful than the company's been marketing it as for decades.
I think with having this in mind, it's hard to take all of the responsibility away from the company because, it happened that people thought this is less addictive, but in the end it's the same opioid as other opioids, and all opioids have the potential to get people dependent.
Grunitol doesn't deny that opioid painkillers like tramadol can be misused and cause addiction. Here's what it does say. It doesn't market tramadol as a drug with low risk of abuse or dependence. Its position on the product's abuse potential was based on scientific data that was always shared with regulators. Tramadol should only ever be used under strict medical supervision and following careful risk-benefit assessments. Regulating its legal medical use ultimately fell within the purview of national governments. The company supports stricter measures if the situation within a certain country requires them. But in several West African countries, tramadol was only regulated more strictly after the drug had already been wreaking havoc for years. Pharma is a $1 trillion industry. The global pharmaceutical market has been growing for the last 2 decades and is now worth almost $1.7 trillion. That's partly because societies around the world are getting older. To sell their products, some companies still rely on proven methods. But highly addictive drugs like opioids should deliver on their promises from the very beginning. From addiction and social decay to lethal overdoses, many substances that can save lives also have the potential to destroy them. Pharmaceutical companies, or at least part...
Yeah, they're just drug cartels. It's really all there is to it.
How do you stop your...
Just froze the rent. That means if you're one of the more than 2 million New Yorkers who lives in a rent-stabilized apartment, your rent's going to be frozen next year.
That's right, New York, but also Dublin, Barcelona are exactly the right tool for the job. So, when do price controls actually make sense? The answer can be summarized in just one single word: monopoly. That is, if you're the only seller of something people need, you have a super strong incentive to charge more and increase your profits as much as you can because your customers simply have nowhere to go. Just think of the wire that brings you electricity or the pipe that brings you water. In these cases, there is no natural competition, and there never will be, because digging up every street to lay a second pipe or wire would be insanely expensive and wasteful. Therefore, economists call these types of markets natural monopolies. So, wherever these networks are in private hands, economists tend to advise governments to set a limit to what these monopolists can charge, because once prices are capped and squeezing customers is no longer a viable option, the only way left for commercial enterprises to earn more money is either cost cutting or serving more people, which is both good for the company and for the people. So, economists are not always against price controls. Yet they are firmly against rent controls. Why? The answer is very simple. Landlords
Let's react
are
to
not
this.
What's up, guys? So, recently there's been...
Let's not. Thanks for the donation, Dodo.
monopolists. Sure, big investment funds with lots of housing in their portfolio do exist, but rental ownership is far less concentrated than people think. For example, in Spain, a country where rent prices in major cities have skyrocketed in the last decade, 2/3 of the rental units are in the hands of landlords with just 1 or 2 houses. On the other hand, individual landlords with 10 units or more only represent 3.6% of Spain's rental market. And according to an investigation of the Bank of Spain, investment funds only control about 8% of the rental units. And this is not just a Spanish thing. In Germany, only about 13% of rental apartments are owned by private companies, which tend to hold large portfolios of housing units, while most apartments were actually owned by private individuals and community owners. Finally, in the US, where the Wall Street is buying up all the houses story is loudest, the Census Bureau's latest surveys find that investment trusts and corporations with more than 1,000 units own less than 2% of the single-family rental market, while 3/4 of them are in hands of owners with less than 10 units. So rental markets are the opposite of a natural monopoly because there are just so many landlords competing for the best renters. And crucially, if a market is already competitive, then prices should in theory be as low as they can be. Sure, landlords will still make a profit, but this should...
Yeah, and dumbass New York, it just keeps expanding rent control, so then all these landlords have to jack up prices on all the other fucking units, and it's just making the fucking rental market that much worse. New York is just run by like complete fucking morons. And apparently everybody who lives in New York is completely and utterly fucking retarded. It is just so blatantly obvious what the fuck is wrong with New York, and they just won't fix it, and they just continue to make it worse.
Should not be excessive for one simple reason. If rents are too high, this introduces a massive incentives for landlords to simply build more homes. For example, by building on vacant land or by building larger structures. So in theory, landlords should on average be pretty good and not make too high profits. And in theory, rent controls will disturb a healthy market and therefore lead to all sorts of unintended bad consequences. But is that actually true? Because on this channel I have the following simple rule. Yes, theory is nice, but what really matters is evidence. So, what actually happens when rent controls are introduced? Luckily for us, economist Konstantin Kolodilin did the dirty work of tracking down essentially every empirical study on rent controls ever written. 92 peer-reviewed studies covering 36 countries from 1967 all the way to 2022. So, what did all of these studies find about rent controls? First, let's state the obvious. Yes, rent control policies do work in the sense that they lower rent, they have a negative impact on rent for tenants living in rent-controlled apartments. 36 out of the 41 published studies find that once rent controls are introduced, rents do indeed go down. But remember, the rental market is nothing like a natural monopoly. Small landlords do compete with each other to find renters, for example, by investing in properties to make them more modern and attractive. So when you say the rent can only be this high, you essentially interfere with this market process, and landlords react in typically one of two ways. First, some landlords decide that if they cannot rent at market prices, they would rather sell their properties. Of course, that's actually good news for buyers because they will have more options available for them. Indeed, most published studies find that rent controls tend to increase home ownership. But in the short term, every home sold to a buyer is of course a home pulled away from renters.
Guess who's now a guest on the Young Turks?
That doesn't sit right with me. That just doesn't sit right with me. And again, you can look at every piece of this
She has the most insane, psychotic, delusional, schizophrenic take on the Charlie Kirk fucking assassination, and they brought her on literally just because she blames the Jews. Dude, the Young Turks is like, how the fuck? Like, people unironically watch this shit? Dude, the human race is just a bunch of dumbass chimpanzees. Thanks, Dodo.
Surprisingly, 9 out of the 10 published studies find that while home ownership increases...
Let's see, Kid Boo. Can't watch that. Don't care. And don't care about Bleach. Thanks, Kid Boo.
The rental supply shrinks, goes down, and given that not everybody can or wants to get a mortgage, it means that people who cannot afford to buy will find it more and more difficult to actually find a rental apartment. On the other hand, because now everyone wants to be inside these nice rent-controlled apartments, of which there are fewer and fewer left because landlords are selling, almost all studies find that rent controls greatly decrease mobility. That is, people who would have otherwise moved because, for example, they found work in another city. They started earning more, so they wanted a bigger apartment. Or they need a smaller apartment because their kids just moved.
You think Thanos is right about killing half of everyone? No. He should have just killed the dumbasses. So if you get rid of dumb people, yeah, that makes sense. But if you just randomly kill half the population, that's just stupid.
Move out. Many of these will not.
Like, I don't know why he wouldn't have had a eugenics approach where it's like, let's just kill off the bottom 50% of, like, you know, people with a lower IQ. Like why wouldn't he have done that?
Not move because they fear losing their nice rent-controlled apartment. So while rent controls may benefit renters that were already in the city, they make life much harder for people that need to move into a new city in the future because fewer and fewer apartments will be becoming available because some are sold and many people stay in place for a long time. This will force new people to look where the rent controls do not reach, like for example newly built homes, which are sometimes exempt, or apartments in the next town over. So of course, virtually every study finds that while rent controls in major cities or neighborhoods cause rent to decline there, they cause rents to go up in uncontrolled markets nearby. So concretely, if Mamdani introduces rent controls in New York City, it's likely to drive up rent prices in Newark, which is nearby. But it gets even worse. Yes, some landlords sell their rent-controlled properties and some do not. But those that do not still face lower rent and more people that want to get into their apartment. So what do many of them do? Well, they simply stop investing in keeping their apartments nice. They become worse landlords.
Well, yeah, they literally can't afford to repair, upgrade the apartments, and there's no, like, there's not even any point, right? They can't make any profit. There's just some, fucking broke retard living in there who's probably just turning it into shit anyway.
In other words, when the government reduced their income by capping rents, they simply responded by reducing their costs to protect their profits. Indeed, out of the 13 published studies that examined housing quality after rent controls, about 11 of them find that house quality goes down after rent controls are introduced. But perhaps most worrying of all, most studies by far show that rent controls decrease new construction of rental properties because, of course, they have become less interesting to invest in.
Yeah, why would you make a new fucking property if your properties are going to end up getting rent controlled and you can't make any fucking money?
In other words, the real effect of rent controls is that a lucky group of insiders who already had a nice apartment get a lower rent. And perhaps that really helps them. But many of them still pay for it because their landlords will maintain these properties less. And second, more importantly perhaps, every renter who just happened to be not in a rent-controlled apartment at the time of rent controls being introduced will find that it is increasingly difficult to live in these cities at all. And this is why most economists believe rent controls had a negative impact on the amount and quality of affordable rental housing. And yet, most economists do agree that rents in major cities are out of control. So, if rent controls are not the solution, what solution do most economists actually agree on?
Get rid of fucking rent control and let fucking builders build.
To reduce
Get rid of the fucking taxes around building.
Out of control rents. It's very simple. Just build more housing units. You see, if cities like New York, Dublin, and Paris keep growing, they will, of course, need more workers. And more workers need more homes. So the obvious solution to out-of-control rents is that mayors like Mamdani should simply build more homes. Otherwise, they end up creating a shortage. And a shortage is what gives landlords their power in the first place. Rent controls attack the symptom, increasing rents. And while that does reduce rents, it simply changes the problem to increased scarcity and year-long waiting lists for rent-controlled apartments. On the other hand, building more addresses the problem directly, the disease. When tenants have options, landlords will compete for them, and rents fall without anyone capping any prices. A good example is Auckland, New Zealand's biggest city. In 2016, Auckland rezoned large part of the city to allow higher density building. And construction absolutely exploded. And while rents still went up, they did so far less dramatically than in, for example, another New Zealand city, Wellington. Specifically, if we correct for inflation, we can see that Auckland's rent prices stabilized while Wellington's exploded. And no, this is not just let the free market fix everything. Many economists agree that public housing is important as well. When 50 people show up to see an apartment, there are always some unlucky people that sit at the back of the line with very few prospects of being ever picked up by landlords, such as, for example, single moms or young people without a college degree. And these people may literally end up on the street if rental apartments are too expensive. So if the market fails to offer enough, the government should step in and offer more public housing. So the answer most economists support is just build more houses of every kind. Market rate housing, public housing, social housing. And yes, even if you see developers building mostly luxury towers, this still helps everyone else, even the poor, through a process that economists call filtering, which is similar to musical chairs, in which the well-off move into new units, freeing up the older units they vacate, and the chain reaches down the income ladder further than you might think at first. So cities that build more, like Auckland, will become more affordable compared to cities like Wellington that do not build more. Sounds simple, right? Case closed. No, not quite. Because if the answer is so obvious, why does almost no expensive city like New York actually do it? The answer turns out to be that new construction is very unpopular because, perhaps not very surprisingly, most people do not think like economists.
Richard. Is Jason Blaha's pull-up form full range of motion? Gang, why is Jason's physique still shit after all those years of pinning?
Everyone pushing fad diets keeps forgetting that traditional bro diets done by bodybuilders have built some of the most muscular, ripped, impressive
No, that is not full range of motion.
physiques on the face of the earth for generations.
It's,
So again,
half rep.
chicken or any lean meat, rice, and lots of vegetables has been a time-proven, absolutely time-proven method.
Like how this guy like struggles with his weight. And he's like keeps having trouble maintaining a reasonably lean figure, and then he's like Oh, these fad dieters don't know how to eat. Sure. Like, this guy isn't just eating fucking potato chips. Thanks, Richard's 30G syringe.
For example, in a recent experiment, economists Elmendorf, Nall, and Oklopzia asked thousands of Americans a very simple question. If your city suddenly gets a lot more houses, what would happen to prices and rent? Well, only a minority of people said prices or rents would actually fall, while a whopping 42 or 43% of people thought the opposite would happen. More construction means higher prices. And this is very strange because they do seem to understand the basic logic of supply and demand. In fact, when asked how supply chain problems in the market for new cars, so fewer new cars, would affect the price of used cars, 86% of respondents correctly predicted that there would be higher prices for cars if there were.
Why are people, like, literally insane when it comes to housing?
Fewer cars available. So it's very clear to people that if fewer cars can be made, then prices will go up. But for some reason, housing is where the logic breaks down. So when asked who is to blame for high housing prices, most respondents pointed their finger squarely at developers and landlords. Which, while
It's
a bit
the fucking
depressing given
government.
all the evidence that we've seen so far about rent controls, was also quite enlightening because it can fully explain why, despite so much evidence against rent controls, and in
99% of the time, issues with economic development, making money, skyrocketing fucking food prices, housing prices, 99% of the fucking time it's the government. The government always gets in the fucking way. By and large, people can make rational decisions when it comes to their finances, business decisions, shit like that. And every fucking time the government gets in the way, they fuck everything up and hold everyone back.
favor of simply building more housing, politicians often choose rent controls and the much simpler and, crucially, much more popular option. So, in conclusion,
it's all about getting elected.
Why?
Well, here's the thing. Here's a big reason they do this. It's because they have no interest in actually lowering the cost of housing. They want housing prices to go up, and there's a reason for that. Fucking boomers. Boomers own, like, fucking 90% of the fucking real estate. So that's their biggest voter base. So if they actually did anything to lower housing prices, they'd lose their biggest voter base. So they literally fuck over everybody, especially younger people, just to get elected, and they objectively make the fucking country worse. Again, just to get elected. Like, society's a fucking joke, dude. It's just such a joke.
I do almost 90% of economists oppose rent controls. It's simple. The evidence from dozens of studies shows us that while rent controls do work in lowering rent for current renters, they do not solve the underlying problem, a housing shortage. Instead, they shift the problem from the current and future tenants to just future tenants that were just unlucky not to be in a rent-controlled apartment at the time that rent controls were introduced. Instead, the experience of cities like Auckland shows us very clearly that building more homes will stabilize rents. Yes, even if those are luxury, a massive.
Yeah, and this Mom Donnie fucktard is just gonna turn New York into an even bigger shithole. It's just hilarious how there's, like, just dumbasses are ruining society and they don't even know it. Like, they literally don't even know it.
I have a lot of regrets about the amount of drugs that I did over years. It changed my emotional balance and my ability to control that. I have a lot of conversations with my wife with highs and lows that were not there before. And I haven't been on any amount of anything outside TRT for a couple years now, but the damage is done. You don't see it in the moment. You see it years later when you stop.
Yeah.
Right? Men are taught to not talk about that.
Protein in urine is +3. I haven't had any of those in a long time.
I've seen 1 in 4 years.
Okay. That's good. Because that seems to be like a previous generation thing where everybody had kidney failure, but only half of the guys actually talk about it.
I feel like that's got to be more related to the blood pressure, though.
Yeah.
But for sure that it's so multifactorial.
Yeah, and then maybe the mitochondrial stuff, because like SS31 and MOTS-C and SLU, that they have some kidney protective benefits.
Here we fucking go. Oh, peptides are magic. They do everything. Like, Vigorous Steve is just weird with peptides. I don't fucking get it.
Because the mitochondria are highly active in the kidneys. And if you damage your mitochondria with all the oxidative stress and poor nutritional intake, then obviously your kidneys are going to get the beating first, right? Besides the blood pressure and the other stuff.
And I guess even like stack design, not to create inference, but well, we'll see now. This is probably a good thing with EQ, where EQ historically linked to kidney toxicity. With the resurgence or the renaissance of EQ coming back, are we going to see in 2 years' time a repeat of?
I'm extremely skeptical about the kidney damage shit on EQ. Like, there's so many people who've run super high doses of EQ for so long, and just nothing happened. Like, and again, it's all based on like animal studies.
Kidney issues, or people are using now EQ alongside all the mitochondrial optimization strategies, blood pressure management, antioxidants, blah, blah. We might not see anything. And you sort of then see the change in the culture from the education, where a compound that was once viewed off limits from it.
They're weirdos with peptides, dude. Super fucking weird.
Alter it a little bit, but what are some you guys have discussed this a little bit in the past, especially on your anabolic roundtable. I know there's some new audience here, but if anything has changed in the course of the last year or so, what are the first steroids that would come to mind that you would choose to avoid?
In my mind, Superdrol, Halotestin, D-ball, Ment, maybe Tren situation. What? No, not Ment.
What, you don't like Ment? I thought you were going to say DHB.
Oh, DHB. Yeah, DHB would be at the top of that list.
I thought Tren was S tier for Steve.
Yeah, Ment is S tier. What are you talking about, Kurt? Continue, please.
No,
continue.
I've used Ment with no problems. It's sometimes hard to manage.
Don't wait, Boomer genocide now.
They bought houses for 50 grand. The median price of a single family home was 13,000. Yo, they bought cheap houses, and they brag about this today. You've heard this from a relative. At my house, I got it.
Well, and you know why boomer houses were so cheap? It's because they were building like crazy. There was an abundance of fucking housing. And they didn't have the fucking zoning laws that they have now. So builders were able to build like fucking crazy. There's also government incentives too to incentivize building. So they were able to get houses for super fucking cheap. And then everything fucking reversed. Now everything's fucking expensive as shit. And then boomers are like, I had a house when I was fucking 13 years old. I was working a paper route and I was able to buy my own home. Why can't you buy your own home? You're fucking 37. You still can't afford a house? What are you, lazy? I was able to buy a fucking house on my paper route when I was 13.
Richard. Why is iDubbbz such a huge cuck and a huge simp for Hassan? Also, is sharing your wife part of socialism?
Oh, apparently. iDubbbz was always a dumb guy. I don't know why anybody thought he was like based or anything. Like you could tell he was stupid. This is why he fell into this bullshit with Anissa. He's just a fucking stupid guy. And apparently, like, Anissa's his second girlfriend. His previous girlfriend was some, like, actual elderly woman. She was, like, 50 or something. And I think he never even had sex with her. It was a really weird situation. So the guy's stupid and terrible with women, and people are, like, actually surprised what's going on. So, yeah. He's just a dumb guy who's terrible with women. And by the way, like, this is going to happen any minute now. Anissa's gonna break up with his ass, and as soon as they break up, she's gonna blame him for the breakup and vaguely suggest that there was some kind of abusive relationship going on where iDubbbz wouldn't listen to her feelings or some stupid shit. They all do it. So, yeah, he's just dumbass. Thanks, Autistic Stan.
25,000. And they look at you like they expect you to, you know, can pat them on the back for having such foresight, such a visionary real estate trader. If they had any type of foresight whatsoever, they would have done it 100 times over. There were multiple
Yeah, they would have bought like 10 houses.
opportunities from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the monetization of equities, the monetization of real estate. Pick a thing out of a hat. There were 12 different Bitcoin-like opportunities where these old fucks could have 100x their money if they had been doing anything other than keeping their money under their mattress. If they had been awake at the steering wheel, they could have grabbed for themselves.
They would have invested in Microsoft, Apple, Amazon. None of them did it. They just bought one fucking house, and then they're like acting like they're some sort of fucking financial guru.
Hundreds of millions. But they didn't because they're pinheads. They bought.
Yeah, boomers are fucking assholes. Can't stand them.
This country was an actual paradise. Wealth, houses, jobs, food, clothing that wasn't fake. It's the best it's ever been for any generation in human history. And what do your parents, in some cases, or your grandparents do? They destroy it. They destroy it in a way that is will bring them into the Hall of Fame of legendary, selfish morons. That's what happened. These are people who, it appears they deliberately spend the most money with the least regard for the people around them. I want you to see what a walnut brain looks like. This country.
Yeah, boomers are literally evil.
The mind of a boomer is an amazing thing because they were the first ones really hit with television. If you can see it, it's real in the mind of a boomer. These Facebook groups that are run by Indians, and they're like local Facebook, like Texas Mother Support Group, and the picture will be a woman holding a quilt of Texas. It's obviously AI generated. Boomers are just sifting through this, trying to find how to send money to these people. What's the quickest way to empty my wallet with the money that my grandson's gonna need to pay when I'm dying anyway? What's the quickest way to transfer this into brown hands?
Yeah, Sam Hyde has some base takes, even though he's like a crazy Nazi. Oh, man. Can we get another, like, flu virus or round of COVID to just finish off the boomers once and for all?
Yeah, it's not a beginner drug, that's for sure.
It's not a beginner drug for sure. I mean, tren in most people. It depends.
I've been having great results from tren.
When you're talking about, like, you talk about competitors, you talk about lifestyle guys. I think I'm getting more conservative as I get older. I feel like lifestyle guys should be like test, maybe GH, maybe Primo. I'm not even, I wouldn't even get EQ as a lifestyle drug anymore. I think too many people think that that's a good choice. I don't know. I think it's more intermediate or advanced for bodybuilding.
Yeah, for competitors.
Yeah.
I mean, for competitors, you don't avoid anything because you want to win.
Well, that's what I was about to say. That I think as time has gone on and the availability of information, there's, and I see this quite a bit with consults, of hyperfixating on like what else can I add is always the question. Like, what else can I add?
Yeah.
Rather than when you actually delve into like the I guess, the simpler things or the more shittier things of like, how's your sleep? How's your training?
Richard. Yo, is this part of socialism brainwashing too, or young blood's brain just straight up cooked?
Yeah, we've already seen this. This is somebody who's just genuinely retarded, who's never been forced to act like a fucking adult. And then, yeah, this is his first taste of adulthood. Thanks, Richard's 30G syringe.
How's your progressive overload? How's, you know,
we got.
yeah, you know,
all the drugs don't matter.
Methyltrianolone. Let's go.
you know,
I would avoid.
Metal trend. What happened to the renaissance of Dianolone after my
It's not available, Dean. Like, if you talk about something, it has to be available. Like, DHT enanthate is available. That's some good shit.
Yeah, where the fuck do you get DHT and enanthate? I'm actually curious about that.
I think, you know, this what else can I add, or this sort of mentality of someone's taking, let's say, for example, off-season sort of setup, tests, GH, Primo, and maybe Anadrol or an oral. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, what if I added Ment? Or what if I added MPP? Or what if I added Tren? And it's sort of like, when you ask the questions around like progressive overload, are you still progressively overloading every session? Is there any signs of recovery deficits or issues towards sleep, issues towards digestion? If they're all green, then maybe you might say, okay, well, what does adding more androgens do into the equation? So what does adding another compound do over increasing the dosages of the others? And I think some of it is like the intrigue, but a lot of it can sometimes be, paranoia would be a very harsh word to use, but it's almost like, oh man, but only if I added in this compound, I'm going to be much stronger. I'm going to be much bigger. There's like the last time I competed where I used next to none of the historical competition compounds, it sort of proved that a lot of guys second guessed on like, oh, so when are we who's already taken the historical compounds that are known to build muscle? And I was like, well, if I throw in this exotic thing, like let's say Ment, you know, from a neural perspective, so to improve like your mentality towards training, dopamine drive, etc., and obviously its effects on muscle building and it being very similar towards 19 NORs, you might not necessarily need that compound, because adding in that compound might now change potentially towards a neurotoxic setup where you're gaining more muscle mass, but now you're damaging neurons. And it's again, you're sort of figuring out the pros and cons of gaining more muscle mass, but potentially getting more stupid over time or having problems when you get older. And that's sort of where, it comes back to like what I always say, you can have the short-term benefit, but what's the long-term gain, or what's the long-term detriment, and what you don't necessarily want.
Balanced panel, let's put it that way.
I'm still intrigued. I mean, I've done my fair share of experiments, like I've said in the past, and the obviously with stepping away from bodybuilding, I still follow like things like ATX and all these sort of new compounds that are coming, but my days of doing what Steve is now still doing are well and truly gone, because I'm not thinking about like what am I to gain from doing it other than being able to put it out there as an educational setting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting like as soon as I see a red flag, I abort. I don't want to persist through it anymore like I used to. Like, oh, I got to get the data and the before and after pictures, and like if I see a red flag, I'm done.
Kurt, since you only have about 15 minutes left, do you mind if I ask you, is there anything else that comes to your mind other than the 19 NORs that you might slightly regret, or you just wouldn't touch personally? Even as a competitor, you would at least try to minimize use.
I think Kurt regrets the most not starting at 25 years old.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
because who knows?
Maybe you could have been a fantastic 212 competitor.
I might have been.
Yeah,
I see the whole 220 at 5'7" with TRT. So
yeah, I mean, when I saw you to the Olympia like 2 years ago,
I was like almost 240 then.
Yeah, you were full as a house.
Things I would avoid. Honestly, I'd avoid insulin. I know that's probably not a popular thing to say, but it's the one thing you could do. You do it wrong once, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
And for most guys, it's just not needed unless you really need to eat that much food that your pancreas can't keep up. And I see that as a trend in the open guys. A lot of them are getting away from that.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like anything else, I guess it can be used appropriately. Just something I would caution. I just don't think it's a need for most guys.
Okay.
No, I agree. And I used to be a big fan of insulin, but nowadays I think it's one of those last things. And then even then you don't need it daily, you know.
In someone's blood sugar response to using GH versus before they ever used it. I know one person, for example, started his first cycle of GH. I think it was only 3 or 4 IUs. And in his off season, where he never had issues before, his fasting blood sugar rose to 108.
So I wouldn't use fasting blood sugar as a metric for anything. So we're taught to not.
Just
we don't
fasting
even look at
insulin.
it.
Any advice on quitting alcohol? Yeah, quit alcohol.
I only A1C. I only look at fasting glucose in people that are diabetic that have to manage their blood sugar, because you're gonna dawn effect. Right, we all eat so much so often. It's never gonna really be. Rarely is it super low. I'm just looking at A1C. I don't really care what people's fasting glucose is.
We gotta do it. It's just something we gotta do. Why the fuck is this horse shit all tangled? What the fuck is that?
Do y'all remember when Jazzman's face was still an emoji in niggas chat? And he didn't remove
Oh my god, how the fuck did I can't believe that, dude. That's just awful. That was really bad.
change your damn YouTube profile photo. It's like 10 billion years old and it's not even good. Also show us your best black gangbanger impersonation, you know what I'm saying, do rags, nigger this nigger that. Come on bro.
Yeah,
You're
sure.
African.
Thanks, for
Act
the
like
donation,
it.
dude.
Hopefully you lose a really good run because you decide to skip my donation instead of being a rock in the water ignoring the turbulence as you once preached.
Fuck! Swear this shit like cheats. This has been fucking with me. This level's fucked, dude.
Joey beating Maui up.
His ear. Now he's just taking it, which makes me question whether or not the orange cat is actually even alive, because he's been putting up with this for about half an hour. Look at that. I have to do a welfare check on the orange one.
Oh, so
Look
orange.
at little Joey with his paw.
Love how silly kitties are. Thanks, Ethan, though. Silly kitties are the best. Fuck. Every fucking time. Dude, like, this is what I mean. I don't know how I've been getting stuck on this. Like, when I was doing, you know, the practice runs before, I wasn't having this fucking issue. Okay, dude, we're just cooked. I don't... What is wrong with me? Like, literally, what the fuck is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Like, my brain just can't fucking handle this anymore. Such fucking AIDS. I don't know how the fuck you get that one up. That's... yeah, great. This is bullshit. Like, this is actual fucking bullshit. I thought you start right at the very fucking beginning, too. Just fucking horseshit. Holy fuck, dude. How'd that... yeah. Not gonna fucking bother anymore. Hate that game so much, dude. Like, Battletoads is literally fucking AIDS. Fuck that stupid ass fucking game. What was that dumbass zombie game we were playing called? Dying Light the Beast, right? I'm not playing the COD beta. Not interested in paying $100 just to play a game that's not very good early.
Fresh air. Finally. Fuck, I'm weak. But I have to keep moving.
What? We already did this. Why did it save after this dumb shit? That's fucking retarded. Didn't we literally just pick up a fucking shirt? Where's the dumb shirt? Is this a glitch? Where the fuck did the shirt go? It's literally right there. And now there's literally... Am I insane, or does this not make any fucking sense whatsoever? Oh, it's a... Okay, the menu's just fucking stupid. Okay, yeah, the menu's just fucking dumb. And this fucking repair shit you have to do.
I gathered some supplies. Take a look. You might find something useful.
I already did that.
Good. You're getting the hang of it. You need to scavenge and loot anything you can. That's how you'll survive. You can then take what you find and craft it into weapons or tools that might just save your life.
Oh my god.
I'm ready. What can you tell me about the Baron?
His name is
Here we go, more
Marius Fisher.
talking.
He's a narcissistic sociopath, but also kind of a genius. Before the outbreak, his family owned a biotechnology company. A big one. And he's using it to turn the virus into something even more dangerous.
Why?
Power. Whoever controls the virus controls the future. He's experimenting on humans like they're lab rats.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Just know you're not the only one. He's kidnapped hundreds.
So where can I find him?
At his family estate. Basically a fortress, protected by a private army.
Now, I don't care how high his walls are or how big his army is. I'm gonna find him, and I'm gonna fucking kill him.
You think Deathstroke could defeat Captain America in a battle? No. Also, what about Deadpool or Spider-Man. He'd lose to both of them. Thanks, Sengoku.
We have to be smart about this. Take it step by step. While I try and locate other chimeras, you need to gather allies.
How the hell do I do that?
There's a small town not far from here. There might be some survivors there. Also, I noticed some smoke. Could be a campfire. Probably worth a look. I'll mark it on your map. Take this device. Use it only when you encounter a new chimera. Extracting a booster from the same variant is a waste of time.
How many chimeras will I need to kill?
Every new strain will make you stronger and enhance your abilities. But it's up to you. Stop when you feel strong.
Okay, can we play the fucking game?
Okay.
It extracts 2 samples. A clean booster injection for you, and a blood sample.
This was
for
the
me.
problem in Dying Light 2 too.
By
Oh my
studying
god, the
those strains,
yapping.
I hope to discover what makes each variant unique and what the Baron is trying to achieve.
Guess we'll get that. Why even have fall damage in a shit fuck game like this? Where am I? Why are there multiple? What the fuck? Why isn't there just a fucking map screen? Is there like a way out?
Knowing how to craft tools and weapons is just as important as knowing how to fight. There are useful pieces and parts everywhere. Master the art of crafting, and you'll master the art of survival.
Yeah, I know this part.
I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy playing this. I'm very skeptical. It's just tedious and annoying. Oh my god. Like, the combat genuinely sucks.
Olivia, lots of biters out here.
They're slow, but in large numbers they can be dangerous. Keep your distance so they don't swarm you.
Like, They literally can't do fucking anything. So where's the gun place I'm supposed to go to? So there's like literally nothing to fucking do? You just go to the dumb mission area? Like there's no, like literally no reason to fight any of the zombies. It just wastes your fucking materials. When do you get a fucking gun?
To survive out in the open, you need to take advantage of the terrain. Most biters can't climb, so getting up high can be a good strategy. Stay to the rooftops and move through tight spaces to keep them from following you.
Yeah, that just sounds awful. Runaway and hide simulator. Don't do anything fun. Where the fuck am I going? Like, the waypoint just keeps changing.
Mayday! 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 We're under attack at the town hall! Something is trying to get in and we can't...
Olivia, you hear that?
The town hall.
How did they, like, yeah, there's just another problem with the dumb first
I just hope I can get there in time.
How did he hit me first? When I have the fucking machete. Yeah, I figured this game would just become fucking boring as soon as it moved to open world. This is just so boring. Okay, run away, because all it's gonna do... You're, like, literally incentivized not to fight or do anything. It's just so dumb.
What the hell happened here?
Do they have guns? Take the fucking gun. Thank fuck. How are all these people soldiers and they don't have any ammo? How do you do the thing?
Jasmine broke up with you. Jasmine dumped you, dude. Jasmine, 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 Jasmine.
And the only good weapon I have is damaged.
Can you shut the fuck up and play a game without complaining? Use the mask to point you towards objectives. Dying Light 1 was a slower version of this.
Dying Light 1 sucked. And Dying Light 2 sucked. And so far I'm not very impressed with this. Thanks for the donation, dude.
Olivia, I'm at the town hall. I killed another Chimera.
A Chimera? There?
Yeah. It stormed right into the hub.
What's the situation now?
A few dead. Most of them the Baron's men.
What were they doing there?
No idea.
All right. Time to extract the GSP and get my blood sample.
Okay.
You want to inject it while it's fresh. Are you sure you still want to do this? We can always take it slow and see how fast you recover without it.
No, fuck that. If this is what I need to do to take that bastard down, so be it.
Oh, you're telling me if I increase the difficulty and everything's more annoying, I'd enjoy it more?
Hey, open up. It's all clear out here. Says the guy who just saved your collective asses.
Are you with the Baron?
I'm not with anyone.
What do you want?
I want you to open the damn door.
Let's just see who it is.
Jeez, not too trusting, are we?
Which is why we're still alive. Thank you, stranger. We appreciate the help, but I'm afraid all you did was delay the inevitable. We were attacked by a beast, unlike anything we've ever encountered. It destroyed all our defenses.
The UV lights don't work?
Not since the backup system went down.
Our sheriff set out to restore it, but that was quite a while ago.
Where'd he go?
She was headed for the tower.
Well, if she's still alive, maybe I can help her. Stay here.
Stupid.
Olivia, do you copy? I made it to the town hall. A lot of people here.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna help get the power back on here.
Winning hearts and minds. That's exactly what you need to do.
Was that all? Thought I had to kill monsters, too.
Oh my god. Fucking kill me. Why is this shitty flashlight so dark?
Mother.
Oh good, more talking.
I'm looking for the sheriff.
She's up top, but this biter broke the damn ladder.
I'll manage. You okay here?
Oh yeah, great. Here, you're going to need this a lot more than me.
Hands where I can see him.
Whoa, 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 hold it. I'm a good guy.
Prove it.
The name's Kyle. Your friend sent me. I'm here to help.
And what if I don't believe you?
Well, you could shoot me, but then I wouldn't be able to help you.
Boss babe.
Can't afford to waste the ammo.
Does that mean you want my help?
I could use a hand. I need to get the backup system working.
You want me to climb down there and reset the power?
If you do, I'll cover you.
Deal. Just promise not to shoot me.
I cannot stand this weapon damage thing. This is like I cannot be fucked. Can't repair it.
Now what? The monster must have shredded the cables.
Plug it in over there.
Okay, bossy.
That's it. You did it. That should keep him away. Kyle, was it?
Yeah.
I'm Florence.
Now, you're not from around here, are you, Florence?
I'm from Texas originally. My husband was an MP, stationed in Stuttgart when the shit hit the fan.
Is that why they call you the sheriff?
That and the fact that I kick butt. Come on. We better get back to my people. The town hall's secure. Thanks for the help.
No problem.
I'm guessing this ain't your first rodeo?
No, ma'am.
Good thing you heard our distress call. We were lucky.
Not all of us.
Oh, shit.
Sorry, Sheriff. I let you down.
You didn't know such thing.
It's a fresh bite. We just need some antizin and we can...
Antizin. We haven't seen any of that in years.
But we have UV, shrooms,
and hopes and prayers and positive vibes, like any of that shit works. Sheriff, I just want you to know, it's been an honor.
Wait! Why the hell would he do that?
To keep us safe. I'm going to need some volunteers to prepare him for burial.
We're losing too many good people, Sheriff. Death or exile can't be our only two options. There has to be another way.
I wish there was, Jacob. But there isn't.
I know you think you're protecting us, but...
That's right. I'm protecting us. Once you're bitten, that's it.
No, that's not true. With proper treatment, he...
What treatment? From where? We're alone out here. Look, Kyle, I appreciate your help, but we have rules, and everyone here abides by them. If I was the one bitten, I would have done the same thing.
Are you two finished? Because we don't have time for this shit. We're not safe here. Not with that monster out there.
Rangers, I want sentries posted. And extra guards on the generators. We're sitting ducks if those UV lights go out again.
I'm not sure that's enough. That thing is more dangerous than anything we've seen before. What do we do if it comes back?
Comes back? What do you mean? I already killed it.
You didn't kill the beast. You killed a different monster.
There's another one?
When I was up in the tower, I saw it take off across the rooftops. If we're lucky, maybe it'll move on.
Luck isn't something we've been blessed with lately.
All this talk isn't making us any safer. Let's just do what needs to be done.
Come find me later. My room's upstairs. I have something I'd like to talk to you about.
Jesus. I don't know if I can get through this.
Like that, then we're all...
Like, this is so boring.
As good as...
Fucking prick.
Like, yeah, this is just so... Like, Dying Light 2 had the same fucking problem. Basically, you just run away from zombies for 20 minutes, and then you get to a mission area, and then you do the short mission, and then you listen to like 20 minutes of fucking dialogue of just people yapping. Like, I'm falling asleep. Like, I don't fucking care what any of these people are fucking doing. I don't think I can get through this. Maybe if I modded the game so I just have infinite ammo or something and I can just shoot everything, But I don't know. Yeah, I figured once the game opened up into open world, it'd just be boring again.
There's a reason why every famous Russian novel is a character starting off in misery and then having things get even more miserable. It's an important lesson for surviving in the Russian Empire. But it seems like things are going to go from miserable to even more miserable for the average Russian, and they are actually starting to panic. How bad do things have to be for a Russian to get panicked about how awful things are? We'll take a look. But what's even more interesting is what we can learn about what Russians are actually worried about. Take a look. So we're seeing in the Google Trends data an unusual spike in Russians who are Googling how to leave the country as more and more Russians fear a wave of military mobilization. Now, remember, guys, mobilization is a different term than contracting. So up until this point, other than a brief period in 2022, the Russian army has relied on contract soldiers, paid volunteers or volunteers, depending on how they end up in the military, but they receive significant salaries at significant cost to the Russian government in order to fill the ranks of Russian assault units.
Are there any legitimate criticisms against the Iran war, or was Trump right about everything as usual? That question makes no sense, so thanks for the donation. I'm sure you'll think you're a fucking genius, but maybe make a question that makes any fucking sense and I can respond to it.
In almost all cases, these result in very high casualty numbers and essentially is seen at this point as a route to almost certain death. That's because Russia doesn't have problems staffing its safer low casualty units, which, well, fewer and far between, but has serious problems staffing its assault units that it relies on to make the incremental gains at tremendous personal cost. But all of that contract soldier problem could be solved by the Russian government if instead of having to hire soldiers to go on these one-way missions at exorbitant salaries, they could simply force Russian men to do it. And that's what mobilization is. Technically, the entire population of Russian men age 18 to 40 is part of a reserve. And by activating the reserves, the Russian government can pay these guys peanuts in order to massively fill their assault units. By some estimates, if Russia was to only mobilize the equivalent of...
I'm not wasting my time with your horse shit. Thanks for the donation, dude.
1 year of conscripts, they would be able to add an additional 1 million soldiers to their fighting force. A huge number that would potentially alter the calculus of the war itself. There's just one problem. Russians really don't want to do it. And one example they give is a platform linked to a Russian opposition figure named Maxim Katz said it's received a 10x increase in the number of Russians trying to flee the country before what is rumored to be a mobilization in September or October.
Yeah, no shit.
Likely after the parliamentary elections, which again are not real elections, but they are seen as a opportunity for Putin to rubber stamp his legitimacy as the dictator of Russia. But what makes this very, very different from 2022 is that Russians are more aware. See, in 2022,
Why do you play any games if you quit all of them? Just stick to political brain rot videos while you fall asleep from doing 4 sets of 5 reps earlier in the day. I'm going to send a pic of my ass in the mail so you can kiss it.
Russian access to free media was, well, it was still pretty restricted. And more importantly, it wasn't at all clear that the Russian army was actually going to lose in Ukraine. And certainly the casualty numbers were way, way lower. Take a look. So if you got mobilized in 2022, you likely, here is the daily casualty rate of Russian service members, right? In 2022, you can see that the daily losses were tiny by today's standards, 300 or 400 troops a day, right? 200 or 300 a day. Potentially, some days they lost as little as 100 troops, right? Those were casualty numbers so low. Again, these are losses. These are killed and wounded, that they're comparable to U.S. operations in Iraq and Afghanistan during the height of the conflict. But you can see what's happened since then. That number has increased dramatically. In fact, that number is now nearly 7 times higher in terms of daily casualties. And the Russians are aware of it. You don't have to consume Russian media to learn about this because, well, you have, again, nearly 1.5 million Russian men who have been killed or grievously wounded in this conflict. You can't miss it, the fact that almost 1 in every 50 Russian men has died in this war. So what might have been seen as a not that big a deal in 2022, now the average Russian knows exactly what's going to happen to them. They've had years to figure it out. And yes, a lot are trying to get out of the country prior to that. But the fear, again, they say, oh, well, it's still the how to leave Russia searches are way below their peak in 2022. And that's true, but that may actually be true because of the restrictions placed on Google. And before we take a look at the research that I did, I wanted to ask 2 things, you guys. The first is to check and make sure you're still subscribed, or if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you are. Google has been sort of casually unsubscribing people from my channel. Second, if you appreciate that I can make this kind of uncensored, unvarnished content that's oftentimes critical of people in power, then I would appreciate it if you can support me as a member of combatvetnews.com. This is my version of Patreon. Patreon mysteriously kicked me off about 2 years ago, and this is hosted by me. It is entirely independent, and it gets you access to members-only videos, uncensored combat footage that YouTube would never let me show you. But there's also Q&As, shout-outs, and more. So even if you can do just the specialist tier for $5 a month, that makes a tremendous difference for me and my family. So I really appreciate you guys that can do it. Again, really appreciate your support. Now, here's what I thought was interesting. I took a look at Google Trends. Now, remember, Google has been banned in Russia. And so oftentimes Russians are using VPNs to access some of this content. So, but what I think is kind of interesting is that we can still see from within Russia, there is a bunch of these which are the most common search terms. And a lot of these are exactly what you would expect from the most common search terms. Weather, tomorrow's weather, right? Very common problems that are kind of universal, right? But there's a couple of other things in there that are interesting. You can see people asking for what's the weather like in the south? How do I find Yandex, the Russian Facebook or Russia's Google clone? Weather tomorrow, VK, again, a Russian Instagram clone. Weather in Moscow, Avito, news, translator, Ozon. But you can see that, but when we look at the second page, the second most searched for results, you can see that there's a couple that should make you scratch your head. One, there's been a 30% rise in the search right here. You're like, what word is that? That word is, of course, Sberbank. And Sberbank, for those of you that don't know, is the Russian state bank. And it is the one where we talked about yesterday, where many, many Russians have been pulling their savings out of the bank for fears that the bank is either running out of money, which it is because the Sberbank executives have said as much. The Russian government has forced Sberbank to make bad loans to Russian oligarchs, i.e., pull its depositors' money and hand them over to Russian oligarchs and their companies, and also the Russian government itself, meaning that we're seeing in real time here on Google an emergence of a run on Sberbank, right? A 30% increase in, and not just some niche term where it goes from like, oh, one person searched for it to two people. This is a 30% increase in a month of the 16th most searched term in all of Google. But things also are interesting because here there's a few other terms that have experienced this kind of massive, massive rocket upward, right? One is right here.
That'd be good if Russians start doing bank runs. That would basically collapse their banking system.
Pension, which again is interesting because it may indicate that some Russians might be seeing delays in their receipt of their pension. But you can see also a 100% increase in searches for wild berries, the drone targets effectively. But here, look at this. One of the top 50 terms searched by all Russians on Google, experiencing a ripping 250% increase. And what term do you think that is? That has increased by 2.5 times? Mobilization. So I think you're starting to see Russians have a real fear here. We're going to be searching for things in Russian. So what happens when you search mobilization worldwide? Well, now we see something very interesting because in the past month, there's been a 160% increase in month over month. And compared to last year, there has been a 10x increase in the number of people around the globe who have searched for mobilization. You can see associated terms, mobilization 2026, right? It's worldwide searched. The reality is undeniable. For the average Russian, 7 in every 10 fuel stations are completely out of fuel. And we know why this is, right? This is a logical market outcome because Russia has, importantly, experienced a massive fuel shortage because their refineries are being hit, right? Russia can extract crude oil, but has to then pay to ship that oil overseas to other countries like Kazakhstan or India, their refineries refine it, and then those countries
Yeah, Phantom Blade Zero looks like it might be good. October. Yeah, I'll get this in all likelihood. In all likelihood. I think I'm gonna go to bed now. But big thanks to everybody who donated on Streamlabs. Really appreciate it. We gotta train back and biceps tomorrow, so in the afternoon we'll do some back and bi training. You know, stream it. And then, you know, the usual later in the day. But thanks again, everybody. Hope you all had fun. And I will see you all tomorrow. Nighty-night.